What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
8 rupees. Chapter 176. Advertise here. When she was young, Crane, with long dark hair and a rifle on her back, looked delicate and capable. She made a decision quickly and left quickly. In just a moment, he left the palace with Marine. He didn't breathe out a sigh of relief until he went out, his face solemn. Shall we just let them be in Alabasta? Sister Crane. Guion asked hesitantly. There is a conflict with Jiāng Liú here, and we can only suffer the loss. I should feel lucky to be able to retreat, Guion. He Shensheng said, and then she looked at the latter strangely. In addition, how do I feel that Jiāng Liú's attitude towards you is somewhat different? Jiwan's face was reddened, and he felt embarrassed. Where is it, Sister Crane, don't talk nonsense. Jiāng Liú is a big pirate, you have to know it in your heart. After he briefly mentioned it, he stopped talking about this question. It is obvious that Jiāng Liú has reached some kind of agreement with His Majesty Cobra. The two of them are in a tacit understanding, and they don't want outsiders to know. I can't guess what kind of things will enable Your Majesty Cobra to join forces with a pirate, or trust the other person, but there is no doubt that this matter is very serious. After a pause, Crane said in a low voice. Even, some taboos may be involved. This is not something we can mix in. Slowly looking into the distance, he lightly sighed and said. We must leave here at once. Guion turned to look at the palace, sighed slightly, his face seemed a little disappointed. At the same time, in the Albana palace, Cobra's complexion was serious, he occasionally looked back at Jiāng Liú, as if he was observing, as if he was hesitant to speak. Your Majesty Cobra, you can ask me directly if you have any questions. Jiāng Liú smiled and said. Beside him, Orbia, the other crew members followed in the distance. These guys obviously have no interest in the historical text. Then I will ask directly. Cobra took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. I think what you want to get should be hidden here, and it is also the historical text of the ancestors of the royal family in the past, who use your life to guard it. Jiāng Liú nodded. Not bad. The preciousness of this kind of thing, and the taboo hidden behind it, since you came to look for him, you should understand it too. Cobra said. The truth will come to light one day, and the dust will bury the words, but it does not mean that there will be no strong wind blowing, so that they will see the sky again. Jiāng Liú said slowly. Cobra's eyes condensed and nodded. This man is very different from ordinary pirates. He seems to be running for some lofty ideals, not just for ambition, wealth, rights, and status. But, let's be honest, even I don't understand the meaning of what is said on that stone. The ancient text has long been cut off, and the world may not be able to figure out its meaning. Cobra shook his head and said. Not far ahead, you can already see the cemetery. Orbia will interpret these words. Jiāng Liú smiled. Cobra was taken aback. Looking at the woman next to him, he could naturally judge that this woman had no strength at all, and was incompatible with the temperament of other pirates. Very quiet, stable, and focused, like a scholar. Captain Jiāng Liú, invite me to explore the ancient historical truth together. The historical text of Majesty Cobra here is also my goal. Albia said softly. On your ship, even scholars such as Orbia can be accommodated. It seems that my decision should not be wrong. Cobra said. Actually, in the text of the history, we have seen 2 pieces with our own eyes, and yours here is the 3rd piece. It is these stones that are guiding us to an unknown destination. Jiāng Liú smiled. Cobra looked at Orbia in surprise. Indeed so. After hesitating a little, she was loyal again. Actually, I have seen 3 pieces, and Your Majesty Cobra's is the 4th piece. There is a piece under Ohara's Tree of All-Knowing, and it is that piece that arouses the curiosity of scholars. Adding the rubbings of the Fishmen Island and the historical text of Sky Island are exactly 3 pieces. Several people chatted, and they had reached a tombstone. After Cobra arrived here, he didn't hesitate to open the mechanism directly, and the cemetery rumbled apart, revealing a staircase. The 3 of them went down and lighted the torch in the corridor again. Then, I saw the secret room below. A square stone was quietly placed, standing there steadily. I don't know how many years have passed. Orbia quickened his pace and came to the text of the history, rubbed the text on it with his hand, and opened Shikai to read it. Jiāng Liú was waiting on the sidelines. Cobra had curiosity in his eyes and looked at the text of the history. He was also very interested in the text on it. How can it be interpreted? After a while, Jiāng Liú asked. Orbia was flipping through the book in her hand, seeming to compare with the text on the stone. She nodded when she heard the words. It will take some time. It's slightly different from the first few pieces of text, but it's not a big problem. Jiāng Liú laughed. That's good. Can you really interpret this inscription? Cobra murmured. Believe Orbia, she is Ohara's scholar. Jiāng Liú smiled. A scholar of Ohara. Cobra was stunned, watching Orbia's eyes with a little respect. Ohara is very famous in this day and age. In particular, the kings of various countries respect the scholars from Ohara and are eager to have such talents who can help them manage the country. Time slowly passed, and in the gloomy underground palace, there was only a slight noise when the torch was burning. There is a word, I don't know whether I should ask His Excellency Jiāng Liú. After hesitating, Cobra said hesitantly. Your Majesty, please ask. I asked you to be busy, but you didn't refuse. Jiāng Liú smiled. Then I'm not welcome. Cobra's complexion condensed slightly and became serious. He took a deep breath and asked. I really want to know, Lord Jiāng Liú, what is the purpose of collecting these historical texts in the world? As far as I know, some of these ancient stones contain terrible weapons that destroy the world. Cobra's voice echoed in the underground palace. Orbige's body was slightly startled, and stopped there, seemingly waiting for Jiāng Liú's answer. Purpose. Jiāng Liú smiled softly, rubbing the words on the stone a few steps forward. I knew it a long time ago. These rocks are leading later generations to a certain place, and they are also guiding people to recognize the once destroyed, blank history. The people who left these stones want to give the next generation a truth. 800 years ago, the truth of that blank 100 years. After a pause, Jiāng Liú retracted his right hand. I have no interest in Pluton, Uranus, Poseidon, and other ancient weapons. It is said that their power can destroy an island, but such a thing. He looked at Cobra and smiled softly. Actually, I can do it. Cobra looked shocked. What I want is to know these stones, the destination they lead, and the truth they record. Only a man who understands these truths can become above this sea. The real king. He went through the whole, now and in the future. Hearing these words, Cobra's eyes changed, and finally he took a breath and smiled. Even as a descendant of the 20 kings, I still feel admiration when facing you. Jiāng Liú looked at Cobra. You are different from the celestial dragons I have seen before. So, I give you respect. Cobra heard the words and bent slightly. Thank you. Later, he saw Jiāng Liú turn around and smiled and called Orbia. Have you finished watching? We should go now. Orbia was flabbergasted. You don't want to know what is recorded on it. It's nothing more than Pluton. I already know where it is. Jiāng Liú waved his hand and stepped onto the steps. Where is it? Orbia asked in shock. Even the records on the steel are ambiguous. The other party actually said that they knew where the ancient weapon Pluton was. Just at your feet where you rest on weekdays. Jiāng Liú laughed loudly. Orbia shook his whole body, reacted, and his eyes widened. You mean, Black Pearl. Chapter 177. Advertise here. Until Orbia returned to the Black Pearl and stepped on this real deck, she still felt a little dreamy, unable to believe that the ship at her feet was the Pluton recorded in the historical text. Pluton is at your feet. But soon, she was thoughtful. The magic, mystery, and the weird power source of the Black Pearl are all ahead, even unprecedented. This unique and innovative technology may only be possible with ancient weapons. Raising her head slightly, the sea breeze blew the hair of her temples. Looking at the tall man standing in front of the bow, Orbia smiled. When she first met, she only regarded the other party as a pirate with great ambitions but a cold heart and a wicked person. But as she gradually understood, this pirate group, these people, also truly appeared in front of her. And the captain gradually made her admire. What is he chasing? What are you dreaming about? What are you working on? In Orbige's mind, Jiāng Liú is an omniscient, mysterious, powerful but unique and gentle man. How many strong 18 are there in the Black Flag Pirates? How many vicious people? But in front of this man, he was like a child, playing unscrupulous jokes and playing carefree all day long. On weekdays, Orbia rarely communicates with other members. Her closest friend is the 1,000-year dragon who often lies quietly in front of her. In addition, it is Jiāng Liú. The two of them communicated for a long time. The captain seemed to be very interested in everything he found in the ancient past. I often say something, if I have a chance, I must go to Ohara to visit. Unconsciously, I became a partner with you. With a soft smile, Orbia sighed in his heart. Fate is sometimes elusive. The Black Pearl set sail again, and the Millennium Dragon was lying in front of Orbia, blinking, showing a gentle gaze. The new voyage seems to have begun again. Orbia smiled lightly and opened the book in her hand. This was given to her by Cobra in the palace in Albana when she came back, which recorded the history, culture and civilization of this country. The shouts of Jiāng Liú and the cheers of the crew came at this time. The whole ship was very lively when it set sail. The two giants also raised their arms high and shouted loudly. The people on the entire ship seemed to be very excited when they set sail. Sweeping his eyes across the ship, looking at the undulating sea, and feeling the oncoming sea breeze, Orbia suddenly shook his whole body and stood up abruptly. Qianlong looked suspicious and raised his head. In the next second, Orbia took out a thick notebook, took out a pen, and wrote lines with blunt and weird words. If Jiāng Liú stood here and watched, he would be able to clearly recognize that this woman turned out to be written in historical text. From today, I will be a witness, quietly observing and recording the rise of a pirate group and the way to the top of a king. Orbia. The dense text quickly appeared on the paper, with ancient text on the top and contemporary text on the bottom. It can be said that this notebook will be a great asset for people who do not understand ancient writings. By doing this, Orbia is also leaving a hope for the world and future generations to penetrate the truth of the world. She has thoughts in her eyes, and writes as if she is assisted by gods, starting from the time she went to sea, and then meeting Jiāng Liú and meeting Haichi. It was a stormy shipwreck. My companion and I fell into the sea. When I was awake, I saw a group of pirates with ferocious faces. At that time, I didn't know that this was the moment when my destiny changed in one voice. The Black Pearl arrived at Magic Valley Town. We took the updraft and flew to the White Sea at an altitude of 10,000 meters, and saw a fairy tale town, Angel Island. In Little Garden, we saw the giant, and we went to Alabasta and met King Cobra. The mysterious historical text records terrible things. A paragraph of words was written, and Orbia was recording all her experiences after she set off from Ohara. For unimportant things, she used double text to compare records. For very important things, they only used historical texts to record the content of ancient texts. This is equivalent to recording the content of the historical text in this plain notebook. Time, while she wrote these words, was also quietly passing by. Haichi did not stop this time, and his goal went straight to the second half of the Grand Line. Half a month later, Jiāng Liú discovered Orbia, a book that recorded all his experiences. After he was slightly taken aback, he sighed and smiled. Orbia, you will become the greatest person in the world because of this notebook. Orbia did not move his face when he heard the words, just smiled and said, I just think that if you fail as a captain one day, or if I die, you can leave something for the world and future generations. Let them know that there was a black flag in the world, and there was a man like you, Captain. Jiāng Liú laughed loudly. Don't worry, I won't fail. You will witness that I will succeed all the way and become a legend. I am also looking forward to a perfect ending in my notebook. Albia smiled. Choose a name. It seems ordinary for you, but it records a notebook that scares some people, cheers and excites some people. Jiāng Liú said. Albia raised his head slightly, looked at the black flag fluttering in the wind, then looked at the other busy people on the boat, and smiled. It's called Black Travels. 1 month later, the ship passed Sabayati Archipelago, dived into the sea, and came to the Dragon Palace Kingdom again. After having a drink with Neptune, the fishers on Murloc Street, everyone set off again and directly entered the second half of the Grand Line. Finally came back, looking at the undulating sea ahead and breathing a familiar taste, Waldo roared loudly. This time, the world will welcome a brand new black flag. We will have our own territory. Black Flag will become the #1 pirate group in the world. We are super strong, the captain is invincible. The crew members stood on the deck, yelling against the sea breeze. Jiāng Liú laughed loudly, looking at the sea ahead, his eyes are bright, and he already has a clear plan for the next road in his heart. Become the overlord. Build your own pirate kingdom. Chapter 178. Advertise here. In the second half of the Grand Line, this is also a new sea area called New World in later generations, a paradise for pirates, and also their Shira field. Its surface is dark blue, but hidden under this blue, it is bright red blood. Countless pirates are buried here every day. Either because of sudden changes in the catastrophic weather, or because a terrible enemy raised a butcher knife, or because of a sudden intrusion into an island full of dangers. It is dangerous here, but it is also full of opportunities. Maybe you just eat hot pot and sing songs here, and you can pick up a drifting devil fruit from the sea, and then gain powerful power after eating it. Compared with the first half of the sea, it is more exciting and full of adventure. At this moment, the second half of the navigation channel is inside Roland Island. Dang dang dang. A series of alarm bells suddenly rang, and the pirates stationed at the port suddenly widened their eyes, looking nervously toward the sea ahead. It can be seen that on the boats next to these pirates, a pitch black flag is hung, which is a very pure black. And such a flag, in today's world, only that pirate group can possess. Black Flag Pirates. Roland Island is where the Black Flag Pirates fleet is now. Today, the port of this island is densely packed with well-equipped pirate ships with unified flags, a total of 20. Of course, this is not all of the Black Flagship team, and there are other people who go out to fight outside, looting nearby pirates, and are responsible for the daily consumption and reserve work of the pirate group. Longaman and the others have left here for 10 days, and they haven't come back yet. Inside the island, Wagland looked solemn. Will there be a problem? I remember Longaman, who was in charge of the arms trade. Carmen frowned very tightly. It's very possible. Maybe we have to send someone to see. Bernin, who traded with Longaman, is not a good thing. Wagland's face was serious and his tone was cold. It is very difficult to survive on this sea. Without great strength, there is only the consequence of being killed by the annexation fire. Population, territory, and weapons all require means to obtain. Either trade or snatch. Birkning is a well-known arms dealer in the nearby waters, but at the same time a crazy careerist. Many pirates died in the process of dealing with them, or chose to surrender. This time the transaction was a risk. Originally, they thought that the name of the Black Flag was enough to make the other party jealous and complete the transaction properly, but now it seems that things might be counterproductive. It's really damn it. I can't contact Longaman, he may have an accident. Carmen gritted his teeth. At this moment, a hurried bell rang at the port, and both of them turned their eyes. Immediately afterwards, the shocked voice came out through the loudspeaker, resounding on Roland Island. Attention everyone, there is a pirate coming. The opponent's hull is pitch black, like a black gem, on the mast, on the mast. There is a dragon. Besides, my god, what is that? Is it a giant? Inside the loudspeaker, a shocked and unbelievable voice came over. These words shocked the entire Roland Island. Many pirates had strange expressions on their faces, and it was obvious that the guy in charge of the guard was speaking outrageously. Dragon. Giant. What kind of ship gathers these legendary creatures together? What a joke. However, Wagland and Carmen looked at each other, their eyes were shocked, and the next second they showed excited expressions. It's the captain and them. The two of them are very clear about the appearance of the Black Pearl, and compared to the time, the captain and the cadres will indeed arrive here in the near future. Great. Captain and they finally came. This time, no matter if he is Bernin or whoever he is, there is no need to be polite. Wagland looked excited and hurried to the port. At the same time, the Black Pearl flew in like an arrow, but in the blink of an eye, it had already approached the port of Roland. And until then, the pirate who was on guard finally saw the flag on the ship. The other party's flag. The voice was slightly stagnant, and then with confusion and incomprehension. It's the black flag. This is our own people. He finally reacted. However, in the heart of the pirate, there was no impression of the ship in front of him. Ha 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 ha, I can hear your voice clearly from 3 miles away. Young man, don't you even know your own captain and cadres? At this moment, a clear and open-minded voice came over, resounding in the harbor. Captain, officer. The pirate blinked and reacted. Then, his expression became excited. It's Jiāng Liú, Captain Jiāng Liú. The pirates are new. Naturally, they don't recognize the legendary pirates and those cadres, and they don't even know what the ship the captain is on. Quote. But it doesn't matter. From today on, remember me, remember the cadres, and remember the ship under our feet. Quote. His name is Black Pearl. Jiāng Liú said with a big laugh. Almost instantly, the Black Pearl had been parked at the port under the control of Frankie and others. Wagland, Carmen, where's the Langerman? He shouted and jumped off the bow. The pirates around, when they saw his face clearly, their expressions became nervous and excited. The legendary Captain Black Flag, the world's largest swordsman, they saw it for the first time. Boss Wagland and them, come here right away. Not far away, a crew member said with a smile, then he took a sip of wine and said with a smile. Captain, it's so slow for you to come back, our vanguard has been waiting for you for a long time. Jiāng Liú rolled his eyes and grinned, good, something has been delayed. I haven't seen it for a while, it seems that our pirate group has changed a lot. The crew also laughed and said proudly, of course, we now have a fleet of more than 3,000 people and 33 pirate ships. Jiāng Liú was taken aback, then laughed, really? That's really amazing. Many of these guys are newcomers. We will educate them well, but they didn't even know the captain, so I lost my lord. After that, the crew turned their heads again and snorted loudly. Ha 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 ha. Jiāng Liú laughed and looked at Wagland who was running towards them not far away. Captain, you are finally back. Langerman may have something wrong. Wagland, who came to Jiāng Liú, was first excited, and then said solemnly. Oh, Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes and his eyes became cold. Chapter 179. Advertise here. What happened? Seeing the serious expression of his captain, Wagland took a deep breath and explained the details. In other words, this arms dealer named Birkning dared to act on our black flag. Jiāng Liú sneered. Langerman has been out for 10 days, and according to their voyage and plan, they will be back in 3 days. Wagland said solemnly, what a courage. He dared to touch our black flag, is he going to die? At this time, Waldo and others had also walked over, their voices cold and serious. The other pirates at the port were still cheering loudly and excitedly. The return of the captain and cadres made them very excited. As far as I know, Pernin is a well-known arms dealer. He has a huge influence and owns an island called Gunfire Island as a military base. He has a lot of strong men. Although they are not pirates, they are more difficult to deal with than ordinary pirates. Bin Jack said in a deep voice at this time. If we decide to do something to him, we must use the momentum of the thunderbolt, and let him completely surrender or destroy in the shortest time. Hearing Jack's words, everyone fell silent, but it was clear that the eyes of the cadres present were gleaming with cold light. No one can tolerate the guy who shoots at his companions. Can't Langerman be contacted himself? Jiāng Liú asked again. Seeing Wagland shaking his head, the coldness in his eyes became deeper. Then guys, it seems I really have toiled my life. With a grin and sneer, Jiāng Liú's eyes were cold. Give an order, Captain, no one can be at ease after bullying our people. Sebastian shouted. Jiāng Liú looked around and suddenly turned around. Let's go. Everyone. In the next second, all the cadres turned around and walked towards the Black Pearl that had just stopped. After a while, the Black Pearl set sail. Behind him, 20 pirate boats flying black flags set off at the same time, closely following the sides, like a guard guarding the king. Pernin owns his own munitions island, he can independently research guns, ammunition, artillery and other strategic weapons. This is why he is so famous in this sea, and it is also a barrier to his arbitrary actions. Jiāng Liú sneered at what Jack Bin said. It is true that in this sea, if you have the strength, you can do whatever you want, and Pernin, who holds the weapon, naturally has such qualifications. But the other party shouldn't provoke him. If possible, we can maximize the benefits by taking his arms island as our own and turning it into ours. Waldo said. The population of their fleet has increased dramatically and rapidly, but in response to this, the defects have been exposed. The background of the black flag is so shallow that even the weapons of the crew and the artillery shells of the ships are not available. And this is why Langman went out, but he didn't expect that there would be no news since then, even his life and death are unknown. We need to learn about Langman first. Jiāng Liú said in a deep voice. He looked at Bin Jack. Is there any way? Information is being collected, and it should be known soon. Bin Jack said. Jiāng Liú's eyes flickered, looking towards the sea. After a while, Bin Jack suddenly yelled. Okay. Longaman and the others are still alive. It's just being impounded on Armory Island by Pernin. This Pernin seems to be waiting for something. With that, Bin Jack showed a thoughtful expression on his face. After Jiāng Liú heard it, he grinned, but his eyes were even colder. I seem to be able to guess what he is waiting for. I can only say that he is so bold. The sea suddenly swept through a gale, and the terrible majesty permeated, causing many of the crew of the Black Flag pirates to change color slightly, and they felt the captain's anger. At the same time, on the Arms Island. Clang. The sound of steel and metal collisions continued to come out, and then there was the sneer of red iron being stuffed into the ice water. The sound of iron smelting and steel making is everywhere, and there is a strong smell of gunpowder everywhere. Birkning's Armory Island is a fairly mature munitions factory, where various weapons are produced. Swords, rifles, artillery, bullets, shells, everything. Every distance, heavily armed people guard everything here and maintain order on the island. Looking deeper into the island, huge chimneys are emitting white smoke. On the street not far away, there were piles of wooden piles inserted with men with bloodstains all over their bodies tied to them. Longaman, I want you to know that I will keep you alive, just because Lousy wants to meet the legendary big pirate. A mere newcomer can have such a bounty. It's really amazing. What kind of strength can a guy who has been bragged about? Look at you guys, are you still obediently tied to a stake by me, and life and death are in my control? A tall man with a beard, explosive head and a rough voice sneered loudly. He said that he still drew his whip at the man in front of him, making a lifelong crackling sound. Longaman snorted, and the drawn skin immediately opened. You will kneel in front of me soon, begging for my forgiveness. Burn-in. Longaman gritted his teeth. Black Flag gave you a chance to cooperate with each other and move towards the future, but you refused. Then war will approach you. Enjoy your few lives. Having said this, Longaman grinned. Quote, ha 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 ha. Burn-in looked ugly, and soon he heard that the other pirates all looked up to the sky and laughed. What are they laughing at? Don't these guys know that their lives are in his hands? What? Burn-in raised the whip and beat it again and again, but the laughter never stopped. I will wait for your companions to rescue you, and I will reveal to the world the illusion that your Black Flag is powerful. Let them know that you are just a group of weak guys with a false name. In Langman's eyes, there was only mockery. Despite the arrogance, you have not seen the captain, nor the power and terror of the group of cadres. At that time, you will kneel on the ground, call them gods, and pray for my forgiveness. All his confidence comes from the men on board the Black Pearl. In this world, how many people will be stronger than them? The Black Flag is a pirate ship destined to reach the pinnacle. Time passed quietly, and when the morning sun rose on the second day and the sun fell, a series of exclamations spread all over the Gunfire Island. The pirate is coming. It's a fleet, many people. That banner. It's the Black Flag. Chapter 180. Advertise here. The neat black flags fluttered in the wind, and huge ships rolled from the sea like black clouds. With dull, solemn, huge pressure and breath, everyone feels a sinking heart. Alert. Ready to fight. The pirate is here. Tell the boss. Why did it come so fast? What about the guys patrolling the sea? Why is there no news? The people on the island were nervous, and their complexions became frightened and panicked. The destructive power of such a large fleet is unimaginable. It can be said that if the opponent's firepower is well equipped, it is completely possible to carry out a pirate's slaughter magic order. In almost an instant, the huge flagship headed by it had already approached the port. Fire! What are you doing in a daze? Waiting for the enemy to come up. The leader in charge of the guard shouted loudly, with sweat on his forehead. He was a little scared himself, and it was the first time he saw such a formation. At this moment, he saw people on the ship leaping from the bow, and everyone looked cold, full of terrifying majesty. Boom 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 boom. The deafening sound of artillery fire rang out, and in an instant a burst of flames burst into the sky at the port. The screams were also heard at this time, and the leader saw the flames burning in his body, and his mouth was screaming in pain. His brows trembled, and he turned around without hesitation in the next second and ran towards the island. Immediately afterwards, he heard the screams of killing in the sky, one after another, and when he looked back, he saw the Black Flag pirate ships approaching the shore one after another, and then a large number of pirates jumped off the ship. Rushed in excitedly. More and more people, more and more densely, the flames on the shore are burning more and more vigorously. What is that? Suddenly, he was stunned there. And there were many with the same expression as him at the moment, and all the people from Gunfire Island stayed there. What did they see? A huge figure like a mountain slowly jumped off a boat, and then stood up. The body of nearly 100 meters is really horrible and terrifying. He slowly raised the big sword in his hand, and suddenly swung towards the island. The void trembled, and the terrible air flow swept over everyone's heads, and large tracts of land rolled up instead, and the silhouettes of people were lifted off, their expressions frightened and shocked. It's the giants. Damn, how could they have giants? At this moment, on the other side, the same huge body slowly stood up, releasing a majestic breath. Even on top of their heads, there was a huge dragon flapping its wings and letting out a low roar. Damn, what the hell is going on? What kind of enemy are we facing? The people on Gunfire Island trembled in their hearts and trembled all over. How can they fight each other in such a scene? The enemy is not human at all. On the other side, the Black Flag pirates were cheering and yelling excitedly. Brother Brigitte is amazing. Is this the power of the giants? Too strong. Big Brother Dory is also very strong. With two giants rushing forward, we are simply invincible. The pirates were very excited. Did you arrest my companion Longaman? Assholes, hand over Langman. Brigitte and Dory roared and strode, the ground rumbling and shaking violently. This scene made the people of Gunfire Island terrified to the extreme. Jiāng Liú looked up at the brave appearances of the two giants, with a smile on the corners of his mouth. It was obvious that the two giants had already merged in when they came to the Black Flag. They regard the people of the Black Flag as their partners, and at the same time, the fighting instinct in the body of being a giant is also affecting them. Find Langman and catch Bernin. Slowly pulling out the long knife around his waist, Jiāng Liú drank in a deep voice, and his voice spread throughout the audience. All the pirates shouted in unison at this moment, and their morale was high. In an instant, the pirates swarmed in like ants. At the same time, in the square under the huge chimney. Ha 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 ha. Bernin, you are already scared to run away, are you? Langman laughed out loud. Beside him, the eyes of the other pirates who were tied to the stakes lit up. They knew that their companions had come to save themselves. Not far away, Bernin, with a gloomy expression, looked at the huge giant race, and listened to the sound of killing in his ear. His expression was extremely ugly. Find flowers. You are indeed beyond my expectation. However, fighting with me on Gunfire Island is their biggest stupidity. Bernin said coldly. Do you know how many gunpowder bombs are stored here? As long as I detonate them, your friends will not escape death. Longaman's complexion changed and his eyes sharpened. The reason why they were arrested was also because of the massive flame cannonball attack from the other party. His eyes flickered, and Longaman did not respond. He believed in the strength of the captain and the others, and he also believed that he and others would definitely be rescued. Rumbling. Suddenly, there was a thunder in the sky, and a blue arc suddenly fell not far in front of everyone. Immediately afterwards, the electric light flashed suddenly and diffused out, reaching the eyes of Pernin and others at an extremely fast speed, making his eyes wide open. 0. After a scream, Birkening smoked all over his body and fell heavily to the ground. Longaman and the others were dumbfounded, and hadn't expected this scene at all. Afterwards, the electric light gathered in front of them, outlined the shape of the human body, and turned into a young man with big earlobes, holding a metal stick, biting an apple in his mouth, sitting cross-legged in the void, staring at them. Hello everyone, introduce yourself, I am Enel, a trainee crew member of the Black Flag Pirates. Seeing Langman and the others' eyes become pleasantly surprised, Enel pointed again, lightning rushed out, and untied all the ropes. Logia, thunder fruit capable person. Before Enel finished speaking, Langman in front of him had already jumped on him and hugged him. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect Lousy to be rescued by the trainee crew. Thank you, Enel. Oh, brother Langman, don't be like this, don't be so passionate. I don't like men. Enel was anxious. The two were laughing and arguing. Not far away, Jiāng Liú, Leonard and others had already walked over. Enel, what a beautiful job. Your thunder fruit really can be useful with a little training. Leonard laughed. Enel stretched out his arm and gave a thumbs up. Jiāng Liú glanced at the rescued Longaman and others, and after nodding slightly, his voice was low. Occupy this island. 1. Chapter 181. Advertise here. There are always people in the world, and if you gather a group of forces under your hands, you will feel that you are a powerful person. But when he faces a stronger and more powerful figure than himself, he will feel shocked. It's as if the worldview is torn apart in situ, which is unacceptable. Birkening is undoubtedly such a person. He did not expect that his full self-confidence would be crushed so quickly, and the bluff in his mind, the extremely weak Black Flag, would have such a terrifying strength. The gunpowder on the entire island didn't play a role, because before the explosion, their people had been slashed to the ground by the influx of pirates madly and brutally. Too fast. No one could have imagined that Arms Island would lose so quickly. 3 hours later, except for the original staff of the ordnance factory, they squatted tremblingly on the ground, holding their heads in their hands, not daring to resist. All other armed men either lay down in a pool of blood or were tied up by pirates and escorted into the square under the chimney. The stakes were erected, a figure was tied up, and the people of Arms Island reappeared, what they did to Longaman and others before. Remember what I told you. Pernin. Longaman put on a loose robe, and in the open placket, traces of blood could be seen, and the skin was sprawling. At the moment, he has a hideous look on his face, and he keeps sneering. Bernin was a little confused. He had been tied to a wooden stake and hanged for half an hour. At this time, he was embarrassed and passed out of a coma 3 times before being awakened by salt water. Let me go. Spare me, spare my life. I still have great use. I can just build your military base here, and I can provide you with a steady stream of weapons. He struggled, roaring with all his strength. Langermann's eyes narrowed and he grinned. Untie him, he suddenly said to the pirates on both sides. Boss? Asked the pirate doubtfully. Untie. Langermann repeated it. The pirates had no choice but to follow suit, but they couldn't understand. The boss was clearly tortured. In the present situation, is this guy really let go? Kneel down, please me. In the next moment, Langermann uttered 4 cold words, then he pulled out the scimitar from his waist and placed it on Birkning's neck. Bernin trembled all over, hesitated slightly, and knelt on the ground with his knees soft. I beg you to forgive me. Ha 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 ha. Langermann burst out laughing. Birknin's forehead was pressed to the ground, and his hidden eyes revealed madness and hatred. Not far away, Jiāng Liú and others watched the scene quietly. This guy, won't you really want to release Bernin? Cyrus was curious. Langermann is a mature, stable and intelligent man, he knows it in his own mind. Actually, what Bernin said, his so-called role, is of little importance to us. So, his fate is already doomed. Jiāng Liú smiled faintly. Soon, everyone saw that Langermann's laughter stopped suddenly, and the machete in his hand suddenly swung down. Laugh. With blood wafting, Birknin's body stiffened, and his head rolled to the ground. What do you mean is lousy? Lousy as a pirate. Langermann chuckled, then kicked Birknin's head away. Of course he couldn't leave such a guy who humiliated him and almost killed him. Afterwards, he turned his head and strode to Jiāng Liú and others, kneeling on his knees. Thank you, Captain, and everyone for your life-saving grace. The voice was solemn and serious. Langermann was very serious. The moment he was caught by Bernin, he was ready to die. In such a battle, to be able to retrieve a life, that is a burst of luck. Langermann believed that he had lost his life. And this life was given by his friends. Ha ha ha, I'm not talking about this, Langermann. No one can move our black flag people and still be safe and sound. Get up quickly, why do you give this big gift? If you want to thank you, call me Dad. Jiāng Liú and others laughed. Wagland stepped forward, pulled Langermann up, and patted the opponent on the shoulder. Instead of worrying about this, think about how to manage this huge arsenal now. Taking a slight breath, Jiāng Liú turned and looked at the rows of chimneys in front of him, one by one huge factories. The mechanical facilities of Gunfire Island are very complete. It has everything from parts manufacturing to weapon modification and design. After entering this arsenal, Jiāng Liú even saw that in an underground research institute, there were actually bullet-like sniper rifle drawings. Is it possible to rely on the facilities on this island to make tanks, cannons, etc. for land offensive equipment? Jiāng Liú had a whim. But soon, he passed this thought. The world is different after all, here is the sea everywhere, but the land appears more scarce. Some weapons from previous lives may be kings on one island, but how can they be transported to other islands? Perhaps, only intercontinental missiles will be useful. Shaking his head, Jiāng Liú dispelled these whimsy. I have checked the warehouse. The weapons that Bernin had produced before are completely armed enough for our newly added personnel. Furthermore, with the production speed of the weapon factory, it can fully match the speed at which we will accept new members in the future. After a pause, Bin Jack said again. Even in the future, we can also use some forces to trade arms to expand our foundation and contacts. As far as I know, Bernin has been close to some nobles and kingdoms before. It is also because of trading with these characters that he has developed so fast and has his own island. Jiāng Liú's eyes lit up, and he nodded. Continue to contact these people. Bernin is dead, but we can continue his transaction. Wealth, money, and resources can all be circulated through transactions, and this is the benefit of owning a territory. Also, Captain, Waldo also spoke at this time, took out a chart, and laid it out in front of everyone. We can look at the islands around Gunfire Island. Jiāng Liú condensed slightly, and then saw that with the Gunfire Island as its core, there are scattered islands scattered around it. Some of these islands have been occupied, while others are idle. And Roland Island is also among them. It is located on the northwest side. What do you mean? Jiāng Liú had bright eyes and asked with a smile. Our kingdom seems to be able to start building. Chapter 182. Advertise here. With a huge fleet, the daily consumption, as well as the maintenance of ships, the supply of weapons, and the money and resources consumed are huge. This is also the reason why the large group of pirates will lay down their own territory. Without these resources, the navigation and supply of 20 or 30 pirate ships would be a big problem. Feed your fleet by robbing others on the sea. It may be possible for a short time, but for a long time, it is like a joke. It is impossible to achieve. Only an elite pirate group like Roger can do it. One boat, dozens of people, can easily feed. It is indeed a good idea. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly. The sea area where Gunfire Island is located is already at the deeper level of the Grand Line, plus the nearby islands, if it can be turned into its own territory. Then, a huge maritime nation will be established. Between the islands, resources complement each other and can be perfectly combined. Then, It's up to everyone here to negotiate or resolve it. Choose a good place as our base. Jiāng Liú said with a smile. The general framework of this matter is finalized here, and it also indicates that the Black Flag pirates will grow into a truly first-class power in the world in a very short period of time. When the 18 comprehensive factors of logistics, resources, supplies, personnel, etc. are combined, a huge force will also appear in the eyes of the world. Such a country cannot be ignored by the world. The Black Flag pirates temporarily stationed here. 3 days later, all the guns and ammunition manufacturing work on the Armory Island began again. At the same time, boxes of munitions were also transported to the ship from here. The pirates were happy from ear to ear. These new weapons will undoubtedly increase their combat power. On the other hand, these trainee crew members have also completed contact with Perknen's previous buyers. After hearing the name of the Black Flag, whether the other party was a minister of a country or a cruel and cunning dark force, they all appeared cautious. The transaction did not end because of the substitution, but continued. With the Black Flag as the center, the veins extending to the world are gradually becoming denser and more numerous. What is exchanged with this pier is a large amount of money, resources, minerals, or some other precious things. Wagland is still recruiting people, and there are not a few people who admire the name of the Black Flag. Especially after the occupation of Gunha Island, the pirate regiment wandering nearby rushed to join them excitedly. Gradually, another month passed. The number of the Black Flag fleet has now reached 40 ships, and the entire crew has more than 4,000 people. Such a huge pirate group, in terms of strength, is no weaker than a country. At the same time, the rise of the Black Flag on Gunfire Island has gradually caused the surrounding islands to gradually become tense, and they are thinking about countermeasures. A tiger is growing, becoming bigger and stronger. How can it be a corner? I have seen the gaze of this Wolong, watching us. When he leaves, we may have no choice. Make the decision early, otherwise we will appear humble and pitiful when the Black Flag is flying in front of our eyes. An invisible sound of wind drifted over the islands, and for a while, there was a rumbling of wind. Some people went out to sea early because of fear and moved out of here. Some people were silent, making choices in their hearts. And the sacred place above the red line, inside the Mariajoy Palace. As a pirate, this guy didn't risk him to become the pirate king. Instead, he wanted to become the king. What is he thinking? A completely different path from Roger, but this man's ambition makes me feel more dangerous and heart palpitations. He wants to build a sea kingdom belonging to pirates. It's really a bold idea. If he succeeds, the threat we face will be even greater. The 5 elders frowned and spoke coldly, paying even more attention to Jiāng Liú and the Haichi group. The country in that sea area is different from other places in the world. Compared with other countries, the country formed by pirates is too powerful. I really want to know, that kid Sora, what is he thinking now in the face of the rising Black Flag? According to this trend, the success of Black Flag is almost unstoppable. The low, old voice rang, echoing in the magnificent and splendid palace. If he succeeds, what impact will it have on the world? Perhaps, there is no impact, or perhaps, the impact is far-reaching and significant. Naval Headquarters, Marineford, Kong, who had just received the news, sat in a chair, frowning very tightly. The Black Flag conquered Gunfire Island, and the fleet surged to 40 ships. This is undoubtedly a great piece of information. In comparison, the recent actions of the Roger pirates, although they are also very active, seem insignificant. For Marine, the threat of Roger's group is obviously not as big as a Black Flag. Say 1,000 to 10,000, even if Roger is allowed to get the truth of the world, the size of his pirate group and the staffing will not really have much influence on the world. However, the Black Flag is different. 40 battleships, powerful captains, backbone members, and Jiāng Liú's clear thinking and huge ambitions all made people feel trembling. You are only a pirate, but do you want to be emperor? Jiāng Liú muttered. Kong's eyes were sharp and solemn. In that sea area, Marine's control is not strong enough, that is to say, he has nothing to do with Jiāng Liú. Even if you organize a huge marine fleet to fight the opponent to the death, judging from the sea area where the opponent is located, I am afraid that the fleet will not reach its destination before it will be destroyed by the pirates on the way. That sea area is a paradise for pirates. On the Armory Island, the port bell is ringing at this moment, and pirate ships flying Black Flags are leaving the port. Then it's up to you, Waldo. From today, take the first island. Jiāng Liú stood on the shore and laughed loudly. Very easy thing. Waldo smiled slightly and turned on the boat. Afterwards, the pirate ships changed directions and slowly drove away. A total of 15 pirate ships, led by Waldo, were heading toward the sea. With Lionheart Island, our personnel and logistics support will be more adequate. Bin Jack stood behind Jiāng Liú and said with a smile. In fact, I think the most suitable island for us to be stationed on should be Jalo Island, not far from here. There is beautiful scenery and abundant population resources. It is located right at the center of this sea area. It is very convenient no matter where it leads to. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes when he heard the words, didn't you say there, it's a bit difficult. Yes, there are a group of indigenous people living on Jalo Island. They are all warriors who have experienced many battles. Very difficult to deal with. At this point, Bin Jack's eyes became serious. It is rumored that the Whitebeard pirate group once had a curiosity about this group of fighters and landed on Gallo Island, but in the end, they still came back with nothing. Jiāng Liú was slightly startled, his expression also slightly serious. Does that guy Newgate fail? Chapter 183. Advertise here. With the strength of Whitebeard Newgate, in this world, there are few opponents who can really fight him. There must be another reason for what happened on Kaluo Island. But on the other hand, it also shows that this island must have its wonders. Faced with this world in person, Jiāng Liú knows deeply that there are many mysterious places in Pirate that are not mentioned in the original work. After discussing with the guest Jack, Jiāng Liú waited silently on the Gunfire Island after the Black Flag Pirates' next development plan. Today, the size of the Black Flag fleet is growing every day, and many pirates are coming in large numbers, or some people who are not pirates come to apply to join. Time is slowly passing by, and Waldo's trip to Lionheart Island is very smooth. In the next month or so, the cadres of the Black Flag Pirates group took action and conquered 8 nearby islands. At this moment, with Gunfire Island as the core, combined with nearby island groups, a complete island chain has been formed. Between the islands, the resources are complementary and the personnel are also expanding. The Black Flag Pirate group's scale is expanding rapidly. Today, the fleet has reached 50 ships. Dock Island, under the supervision of Frankie and Ace Bagu, is building a huge shipyard. The employees are recruited from villagers on the island. I believe it will be able to start operations within a month or two. Waldo said in Jiāng Liú's ear, who nodded slightly. With the expansion of the site, various facilities are being constructed rapidly. This simple kingdom is growing rapidly. The logistics of minerals, gold, timber, grain, vegetables, crops, etc. are all quickly keeping up and providing them to the crew of the pirate group. Time continued to pass, and in a blink of an eye, another 2 or 3 months passed. The power of the Black Flag is still skyrocketing. As the pirate members increase and the fleet expands, they naturally need more territory. In a blink of an eye, the fleet has reached 80 ships. On such a scale, Haichi has reached a terrifying point just in terms of the number of people. The overall number of people has exceeded 10,000. These 10,000 people are real combatants. If you count, in the past 6 months, the number of ministers arranged by the islands and the civilians of this pirate kingdom is terrible. Yes, with the expansion of the territory, the Black Flag already has 20 islands, and its sphere of influence has spread to a large area of the sea. There are pirates outside, who named this sea area and called it a black restricted area. Every island is hung with black flags. Every day, there are pirate boats patrolling between the islands, and on the islands, there are guards to maintain order. In just 6 months, this black area has become more and more like a maritime kingdom. As the situation on Gallo Island clear, on Gunfire Island, Jiāng Liú bit off the chicken in his hand and asked with a smile. Probably it is clear that this island is not as powerful as we imagined, with extremely terrifying people. But, it's really not weak. Bin Jack said solemnly. They now own 20 islands, almost covering a whole area of the sea, but Gallo Island has always been shelved. There are deep reasons for this. The fighting power of Gallo Island is very powerful. It's terrifying, not even inferior to a pirate group with a captain's reward of 2 billion. There are a group of ancient ancestors living on the island. These ancestors dressed in primitive service, but almost each mastered hockey. They were tall and had amazing natural strength. What is even more shocking is that they mastered archery. Every ancestor was the best sniper. If we want to forcefully capture, we may need to pay a lot of damage. Bing Jack said. Yes. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes and said softly. Occupy all the remaining islands first. The integration of the past few months and the gathering of resources should be enough. Bin Jack nodded. Within a month, this sea area will be completely stabilized and a black flag will be hung. Also let my brothers be prepared, Gallo Island, we must do it sooner or later. Jiāng Liú said. Bing Jack nodded, then quickly turned around. In the following month, the Black Flag Pirate Group had occupied 30 islands, completely turning this sea area into a black forbidden area. And Gallo Island, surrounded by this sphere of influence, became the only bright spot. At the same time, the Roger Pirates also seemed to have completed their journey and returned to the second half. For the first time, this future pirate group faced the big news that Jiāng Liú completed the island rule and established the Black Kingdom Forbidden Zone. On the Jackson, Roger was holding the newspaper, his face was slightly serious, and the others had solemn expressions, and the atmosphere seemed very solemn. Quote. This man is really unpredictable. Quote. After a while, Roger sighed softly, his eyes flickering towards the sea. In any case, he has to admit that Jiāng Liú is the most difficult enemy he has encountered so far. Unlike Whitebeard and Golden Lion, Whitebeard has strength, but no ambition. He just wants to wait for his own things. The Golden Lion, with huge ambitions, is somewhat weaker in strength. Neither its own strength nor the quality of his pirate group members are strong enough. But Jiāng Liú is different. This man has strategy, ambition and strength. His subordinates include Letterfield, Waldo, Cyrus and other powerful cadres. In addition, other crew members gradually showed their reputation and strength. Today, it seems to have become a giant on the waterway. He will be even more difficult to deal with than Shiki back then. Roger sighed. Dahao Jiao Roger, these people are enemies and not friends with us. What's even more frightening is that Jiāng Liú has the same long-term vision as you. He may have seen the past and noticed something. Rayleigh said softly, with a serious tone. Yes, when I was on Sky Island, I was aware of it. The only difference between him and me is in the endurance of spiritual will, but this will become my shortcoming as my physical illness evolves. Roger shook his head and said. However, compared to these, I am more worried. After a pause, Roger's expression became extremely solemn. Rayleigh was shocked and looked at the other's face. He swore that he had never seen the other's face before. This fellow Jiāng Liú, I am afraid that he will use more terrifying means to deal with us. Do not, it should be said, to deal with this world. Chapter 184. Advertise here. In his blazing flames, I saw a terrible future that could burn the entire world. The deep voice echoed on the Jackson. For a time, the atmosphere of the entire ship seemed particularly condensed. Including Rayleigh, Copper Jabba, Kazuki Odin, Douglas Bullet, the eyes are full of solemnity at this time. Roger, in this era, it is the greatest misfortune for someone like you to meet a young man as strong as Jiāng Liú. Crocus sighed. Ha 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 ha. Roger suddenly laughed. He looked very open-minded, his expression looking at the sea became optimistic. Who said no? After a pause, his eyes became deep and serious, and the corners of his mouth were smiling. However, the dream that should be realized is still going to be done. I'm not the one who gives up so easily. Let me encounter such an opponent during the countdown of my life, it is also a kind of lucky for the gift of life. His voice suddenly became relaxed. At the very least, even if I die, the existence of Jiāng Liú will make Marine and the world a headache. Ha 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 ha. The laughter spread far, and was gradually wrapped in the sea breeze, swept further away, and then quietly dissipated. At the same time, the Golden Lion pirate group located somewhere in the second half of the channel. It's time to start, and meet the kid Jiāng Liú. He is developing very fast. If we join hands, it should be no problem to subvert the world, right? Standing on the bow of the ship, the Golden Lion had blonde hair waving, with unruly face on his face, and awe-inspiring aura between his eyes. First of all, Roger is to be eradicated. Fate will not favor a person twice, so this time he. When he faces me and Jiāng Liú, these two behemoths, what he faces can only fail. The voice of Golden Lion Shiki floated out, and it also symbolized his ambition and the events that will take place next. The next moment, the huge fleet of flying pirate regiments drove slowly on the sea, toward the place where the black flag was. On the other side, board the Moby Dick. Tuck. Whitebeard paused the clouds on the deck, making a dull sound. Has Roger come? There is also Jiāng Liú. He has developed such a terrible fleet. I am afraid it is not a small one. Shiki's movements also represent this sea. I'm afraid it will not be calm anymore. His eyes flickered, and even Whitebeard's complexion was extremely dignified at this moment. The sky was clear and the sea breeze seemed very gentle, but, on the contrary, a depressed, heavy breath came over the surface. The storm is coming. Above the sea, I am afraid it will be very unstable. Marco. He suddenly shouted in a deep voice. Father, what's the matter? Marco ran over quickly. Do you feel it? The sky above the sea, the calm before the storm. Whitebeard said slowly, his eyes sharp. Storm. Marco looked at the sky, with doubts in his eyes. He couldn't feel it, but he felt the mood of the old man at this moment, very solemn, so his expression became serious. Get ready to go. Next, we will participate in a grand event. Above the sea, a grand event organized by pirates. Whitebeard's voice drifted away, and there was a sudden surge of waves on the sea ahead, and a strong wind came. Boom. The thunder rang, and suddenly a large cloud of dark clouds floated in the sky. Marco was taken aback, but he didn't expect that the old man really predicted the weather, and he was a little surprised. At this moment, the Black Pearl has just set sail. The crew on the ship is still the people before. For more than half a year, the crew has changed, but nothing has changed. They are still noisy. Enel, your kid is so talented, you have mastered observation hockey so quickly. Ha ha ha, I have not only mastered what I saw, but I also combined it with my thunder fruit to develop new skills. I named him Shinwang. On the deck, the conversation of the trainee crew came quickly. Oh, no, now Leonard, Enel and others can no longer be called trainee crews. A month ago, everyone collectively passed Waldo's screening test, and now it is the crew members who have become the Black Flag. Huh, what's so proud of, we have also mastered armament hockey. Even if you are a Logia-capable person, Horty Jones and I can catch you. Leonard's voice of dissatisfaction came. Enel is still laughing, he just likes to look at his friends and look at him with envy and jealousy. Jiāng Liú looked to the other side. Waldo was reprimanding the crew for knocking over a vase on the boat. Letterfield was stuck in front of the angel woman on Sky Island, her expression flattering and wretched. It's still like this. He sighed slightly, his eyes looked far away. Riding the wind and waves, the Black Pearl split the sea, and was heading towards Kaluo Island. In the past half a year, they have naturally found out the reality of this island. The living conditions of the ancestors are somewhat similar to the ancient clan society. They are physically strong and have their own set of cultivation methods. Almost everyone has popularized armament hockey, and he is also good at riding and shooting, making him the best sniper. In terms of quantity, it is not much. In addition, what is more interesting is that modern humans also exist on this island, and there is a city. The ancestors got along very harmoniously with these people, and their lives were very happy. The people in the city are responsible for the creation of food and daily necessities. And the ancestors are responsible for defending the enemy from the outside. The division of labor is clear, and each plays its own role, which is why the island is so powerful. In the afternoon that day approached the evening, the Black Pearl arrived at the port of Karo Island. The sea breeze is blowing, the coconut trees are swaying, and a quiet and peaceful atmosphere drifts out. It seems that no one has noticed us, Cyrus said softly. Bing Jack took the binoculars and looked into the island. Everything around him seemed quiet, nothing unusual. Everyone was ready to disembark and then land on the island. Suddenly, Jiāng Liú's eyes condensed, and Enel on the side suddenly shouted. Carefully, there are a lot of enemies hidden in the bushes in the southeast corner. At the moment when this sound just sounded, there was a loud buzzing in the void ahead, and the dark curtain of arrows flew in, with fierce vigor. High speed. Hockey is wrapped around the arrow. Be careful, look for shelter. There was a loud shout from the boat. Chapter 185. Advertise here. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes, his expression slightly serious. The arrows flying from the island are indeed many times more powerful than usual. The wrapped armament hockey is the main reason. At the same time, perhaps because of the power, the speed is even faster. Woo 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 woo. A low sound of breaking through the air sounded, and the arrow curtain formed by a group of arrows unexpectedly formed such a weird sound. On the Black Pearl, all crew members became nervous. Let me do it. At this moment, Enel yelled loudly. His long stick circled over his head, and a sizzling blue arc radiated out, forming a curtain of thunder in the blink of an eye. Boom. The thunder shook, and suddenly swept toward the front, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of the arrow. But what is surprising is that these thunder and lightning did not shoot down the arrow, but only made it tremble slightly, deflected a little, and shot towards everyone. Waldo. Seeing this scene, Jiāng Liú didn't care about it, and said softly. The latter replied, and the small cannonball in his hand was thrown out suddenly. The shells rose up against the wind, and were already more than 10 meters in size in the blink of an eye. They whizzed and collided with the arrow curtain, and then exploded, drowning the arrows. The huge flame caused a heat wave, and the shock wave spread towards the surroundings, and the faces of the people on the Black Pearl were bright red. The ancestors hiding in the jungle also seemed a little surprised. The Black Pearl approached the shore, and the people on board jumped off. These people are really impolite, and attack if they don't agree with each other. Sebastian murmured. Jiāng Liú drew out his weapon with a smile on his face. Be careful, the ancestors on the island are not easy to deal with. Everyone approached the jungle, but afterwards, the response did not continue to attack, and seemed to be stunned by Waldo's shell. Until they approached more than 100 meters, the people in the jungle suddenly appeared. The crew was taken aback and stopped. They saw a bunch of tall, dark-skinned people dressed like ancient wild tribes. These people were strong, muscular clapping, bows and arrows on their backs, and short swords on their waists, which seemed very oppressive. From the outside, it looked a bit like Ashandia. Except for the wings, they were carved out of the same mold with Carnola. Leonard whispered. Everyone looked back at Carnola, who was also slightly startled at the moment of the war, looking at the ancestors in front of them strangely. At the same time, the group of ancestors in the jungle were also stunned when they saw Carnola and others. If it weren't for the other party with wings, they would almost think that the other party was their separated clan. Black Flag Pirates, I know you. The leading ancestor withdrew his gaze and said in a deep voice. Oh, then you should also know the purpose of our arrival, right? Jiāng Liú said with a smile. You want to take this place as your own, just like the other 30 islands in this sea area. I may not be able to stop you, but I can bring some obstacles to your plan. The voice of the ancestors was very steady and low. Really? So, did you choose to fight us? Jiāng Liú asked. I also cherish my people, and I believe that your excellency will also cherish your crew and friends. Once we dealt with the captain named Edward Newgate, he was a very polite and aggressive pirate. The ancestors said, it seems that you and Whitebeard get along very harmoniously. Jiāng Liú said with a smile. We became very good friends. Ancestor wrote. Really? The Whitebeard you know is my brother. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly. This sentence made the ancestors startled, and then surprised. Looking at Jiāng Liú's expression, it seemed that they were no longer so vigilant and guarded. You said you and Captain Edward Newgate are brothers. The ancestors at the head were also a little surprised and asked repeatedly. Yes, this is something the world knows. Jiāng Liú nodded and said. Then you can also gain our friendship, but your purpose is different from his. Therefore, before letting you into the island, you must pass our test. Said for the first people. What test? Jiāng Liú smiled suspiciously. The crew behind him also looked at each other. Judging from the conversations between the two sides, a big battle seems to be avoided. This is undoubtedly very pleasing, but the test of the ancestors is also very interesting. Find flowers. You need to take Roche's sniper. If you can take his sniper and not die, you can win the respect of our ancestors, and this island will also be handed over to you. The leading ancestor said. After the words were over, a person stood behind him. This person is also tall and burly, with a knife at his waist, but a sniper rifle in his hand. Yes, everyone in Haichi is right, this guy is really carrying a sniper rifle. Unlike the bows and arrows held by other ancestors, his weapon is a gun. The most important thing is that this gun is full of technological sense, and it looks like a top-level gun in the world. Obviously it is a tribe that looks backward, but it has such a gun, which is surprising. 0. The man named Rocha looked very young, about 20 years old, but his eyes were eagle-eyed, sharp and energetic. Standing there appeared taciturn, chewing gum in his mouth. Use such a test to avoid war. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly. Does Captain Jiāng Liú agree? This is indeed what my ancestor Shabo meant, and it also represents the will of the entire Kalo Island. Said the ancestor leader Shabo. Since Chief Shab has proposed it, why dare I not agree? Jiāng Liú smiled. He looked at Rosa, his eyes sharpened. Then try it. Shabo nodded when he heard the words, showing appreciation in his eyes, and then he turned his head to look at Rosa. Go ahead. Rocha didn't say a word, turned around and disappeared quickly. After a while, Jiāng Liú's eyes became serious, and he felt a breath like a beast, which locked him firmly. Cold and dangerous, it makes people feel palpitation. Interestingly, the best sniper in the world. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Jiāng Liú put his right hand on the hilt of the sword. At the same moment, Rocha, who chose a good location and put a sniper rifle, gradually oozes sweat on his forehead. He locked the captain, but he couldn't find the other party's flaws. What's even more incredible is that the other party can laugh out even when locked by oneself. In the case of being stared at by a sniper, he can still be so unscrupulous. Very strong. Very strong. This man. 10,000. Chapter 186. Advertise here. Before the sniper attacked, the lock of the air machine was originally a silent contest. In this long-distance duel, Rocha was completely defeated, and the opponent's courage and will completely crushed him. With her eyes condensed slightly, Rocha maintained her absolute calm, then aimed at Jiāng Liú. The aura of this man is unimaginable, he has never seen such an amazing and terrifying powerhouse. Shabo once said that the Whitebeard who came to the island also possessed terrifying power. But he clearly felt that the young man in front of him would definitely not be inferior to that Whitebeard. Call. Mixing up the breath, and then Rocha calmed himself down completely, without the fright, surprise, or frustration of experiencing the failure of the first contest. He is the best and most potential sniper among the ancestors, surpassing everyone in the clan. The comprehension of seeing, hearing and sex has also reached an incredible level. It was also at this time, Jiāng Liú raised his eyebrows slightly, feeling a little astonished. The locked energy disappeared unexpectedly. But because of this, his expression became more solemn and serious. Something muttered in his heart. Without the traction of the air machine, he would not be able to judge the position of the opponent's sniper, and the attack would be more difficult to defend. The surroundings are peaceful, and no wind and grass can escape Jiāng Liú's induction. The sniper also seemed to be very disturbed, and did not rush to launch an attack. Rather, it is still hidden in the dark. Everyone is waiting. Waldo and others are very confident, so they appear very calm. Suddenly, there was a bang in the air, dull and thunderous, and it scared everyone. The young ancestor named Rocha pulled the trigger, red light burst into his eyes, and he predicted Jiāng Liú's future in the next second. This is the ultimate and higher level of development of seeing, hearing and color. Almost instantly, the long knife that Jiāng Liú held in his hand suddenly unsheathed, his eyes flashed red, he suddenly turned his head, and the red line pulled out a twisted line. Choke. The eyes of everyone present were brightened, the light of the knife was shining, and the reflected void gleamed. The long knife blocked the front at an extremely fast speed, and the blade collided with the bursting and twisting bullets. When the sonorous sound came from people's ears, visible to the naked eye, where Jiāng Liú stood, an invisible vigor spread to the surroundings, his black hair fluttering, his robe hunting shaking, dust on the ground everywhere, and the wind was loud. With the power of this gun, you are already at the top of the world. A young man named Rocha. After a while, the sound of the wind subsided and his robe calmed down. Jiāng Liú looked forward and said with a smile. At this time, the red light in his eyes had also faded. Rocha stood up, carrying a sniper rifle, and came to the side of Shabo. He glanced at Jiāng Liú with complicated eyes, and then shook his head at the leader of the ancestors. I lost. He predicted my prediction. But I didn't choose to dodge, but with a strong frontal force, I shook my attack and won. This man is very strong. In the last sentence, Rocha increased his tone, and Shabo's expression became solemn. He naturally could see that the most outstanding young man in the clan admired him very much. Now that you have passed the test, please enter the island. From today, this island will be yours. Shabo said softly. The people behind him are all depressed. Giving the island to the pirates in front of them means that they have to leave their homes and find a new hometown. Then, thank Patriarch Shabo. Jiāng Liú said with a smile. Then he looked at Rocha. Your strength is very strong, but you lack the magnificent atmosphere and majesty when facing the world. You still need to temper. I admire you, Rosha, my pirate group still lacks a sniper, are you interested in joining? The sudden words made Rosha stunned. Then, a bright light flashed in the young eyes. A man who can defeat himself in a sniper attack naturally admires him in his heart, and even such a light appearance makes him even more shocked. I have to say that after being defeated by Jiāng Liú, Rosha worshipped the opponent. Such an invitation has a great impact on his soul. Patriarch. However, Rosa still turned to look at his patriarch, with hesitation on his face. Shabo was obviously stunned. He didn't expect that he would still send out invitations to his people, and he would still be the best one. You have your own life, and the decision should be made by yourself. Rosa. After a slight glance at Rosa, Shabo sighed and said. He naturally saw the light in the young man's eyes, which was the divine light of yearning. Rosha was still hesitating. After a while, he suddenly walked forward and came to Jiāng Liú. Can you let my people, and other people on the island, still survive here, and promise not to disturb their lives? Jiāng Liú was stunned when he heard the words, then he laughed. Ha 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 ha. I didn't intend to disturb their lives. What I would rather see is that your people and other people on the island will merge with us and live in harmony. After a pause, he said with a smile. In fact, for the other 30 islands, we have adopted this method to manage the islands. Ministers, there are many people who have been selected from the original islands. Rosa's eyes were brighter. He looked back at Shabo, and simply smiled. Patriarch, you don't have to go out to find other islands. The captain said we can still live here. Shabo smiled and shook his head. What a silly boy. Captain Jiāng Liú, enter the island. He got out of shape. Subsequently, Jiāng Liú and others entered the island under the leadership of the ancestors. The condition of Jiālo Island surpassed everyone's imagination. Although the ancestors looked like primitive people, the residents of the island lived no differently from the outside world. Even Jiāng Liú found a weapons research institute in the streets of the city, and this is where the Rocha sniper rifle came from. As Bin Jack said, Jiālo Island is indeed an island with beautiful mountains and clear waters and beautiful scenery. The temperature and air are very suitable for people to live in. Within half a month, the main members of the Black Flag Pirate Group completed their migration from Gunfire Island to here. They established a new home in the center of the island. To the north, there is an ocean of green grasslands, and to the south, there is an inner lake. Living here is simply a treat. Rosha also joined the Black Flag and became a member of the pirate group. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. On this day, a black spot suddenly appeared on the sea surface in front of the black restricted area, and immediately afterwards, dense black spots appeared. What is that, idiot? Such black spots are represented on the sea. Fleet. Chapter 187. Advertise here. The shocked, unbelievable, and unexpected voice appeared a little hoarse, spreading above the sea, accompanied by the surging seawater in front, rolling up waves. The pirate's face became tense in an instant. The Black Forbidden Zone is a famous zone in the second half, and ordinary pirates don't dare to offend easily, and it is also the existence that other forces on the sea must be afraid of. Since the establishment of this restricted area, they have seen such a large fleet coming for the first time. Quietly without interest, a deep, dignified breath permeated out. Quick, quick, inform the cadres. Quickly identify them. Amidst a panic cry, the Black Flag crew members immediately moved on the pirate ship guarding the edge of the restricted area. In the telescope, the blurred shadow quickly became clear, and a mighty, formidable pirate ship came into view. Call. Taking a deep breath, the crew turned their eyes away, looked at the other party's flag, and then shocked all over. What is this banner? The pupils contracted, a shocked expression appeared on the pirate's face, his mouth opened wide, and a name was called out. Flying pirates. On the sea ahead, an 18 huge pirate ship swiftly approached here. On the flag waving in the wind, the golden mane around the skeleton was particularly conspicuous. The pirate ship with this pirate flag, needless to ask, everyone knows very well that it is the legendary Flying Pirate Group. Their captain is also the Golden Lion Shiki in the world today, who has the same status as his captain Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú. Quickly notify the captain, the officers and them, the Flying Pirate Group is here. The pirates shouted anxiously. On the undulating sea, Golden Lion Shiki embraced his hands and stood on the bow of the ship. His blonde hair was blown by the sea breeze, hunting and shaking. Staring at the sea ahead, looking at the sea ahead, the black flags on the scattered ships that are floating and patrolling are clearly visible. Jayahahaha. Senior goodbye for 3 days, look at it with admiration. Boy Jiāng Liú, he has already put his pirates together in a wholesome way. Only in the blink of an eye, his fleet had reached the edge of the black restricted area and had a face-to-face encounter with the pirate ship guarding there. Don't stop me, a guy like you is not qualified enough. Tell your captain Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, I am here. Golden Lion Shiki shouted loudly with sharp eyes and compelling momentum. The captain on the pirate ship was immediately stunned, and was shocked by the invisible aura of majesty. For a while, he was speechless. Tell me, which island is he on now? Turning his head slightly, Golden Lion Shiki asked again. Garo Island. Golden Lion Shiki turned his head and looked forward, with inexplicable interest in his eyes. Let's go, look at how that kid looks like now. At the same time, on Garo Island. Jiāng Liú and other cadres are gathering in a spacious room. The sound is a bit noisy, but the atmosphere is extraordinarily warm. Blue blue blue. Suddenly, the phone worm on the table rang. Cyrus bent over to connect, and the voice inside immediately came out. Ship, Captain, and cadres, the flying pirates are here. The sudden sound made the sound in the room suddenly quiet, and everyone turned their heads to look at the phone worm. Jiāng Liú grinned and replied, "Oh, really? Don't be nervous, he is here to talk to me about something." The voice in the phone worm was obviously still very nervous, but it was much better than before. "Yes, Captain." Afterwards, the phone worm hung up and Jiāng Liú turned his head and glanced around, only to find that everyone was looking at him. "What's wrong, everyone? There are no flowers on my face," he said with a smile. "Golden Lion guy, what does it mean to come on suddenly?" Waldo said in a deep voice. Since the alliance is confirmed, he has arrived with his own fleet, and what he plans is naturally the ambition to dominate the world. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly. After a pause, he grinned again. Of course, our goals are slightly different from him, but in general, they are still the same. At this stage, he should raise some cooperation issues that we are very interested in. Just talk to him. In the end, Jiāng Liú spoke briefly and ended this conversation. Time is slowly passing by, and the afternoon of that day is close to dusk. The golden sunlight is pouring down, and the sea is shining golden. The sea in the sunset looks extremely beautiful, and the green jungle is dyed in layers. Jiāng Liú and other cadres have already stood by the coast and waited. Gradually, a huge fleet came into their eyes. Coming. Someone shouted. Suddenly, the members of the pirate ship standing in the back row became nervous. The opponent hasn't approached yet, but the crew has already felt an invisible and powerful aura of pressure approaching quickly. Some people even ooze fine sweat on their foreheads. Finally, when the ship headed by the flying fleet docked, everyone also saw the blonde man with a strong breath standing on the bow. Golden Lion Shiki, the man in the top position in this day and age. Someone swallowed with a nervous expression. Jahahaha. The man in the bow laughed loudly, a terrifying and powerful aura that spread to the entire sea and over the island in a flash. The invisible wind is blowing, and the coconut trees on the coast and the jungle are swaying at this moment. Is this the courage of a man who stands in the top position in this era? Some people were shocked. Shiki. Suddenly, a low voice sounded. At the same time, Jiāng Liú's eyes widened, and his domineering aura exploded, crashing towards the sea in front of him. Everyone is standing back, you can't bear the courage of this man. In an instant, there was a nervous roar on the Golden Lion's pirate ship. In the blink of an eye, you can see that behind Golden Lion, someone's body is shaking, looking dizzy, and at the same time, there are cracks in the pirate ship. Such conquerors, this man really is. Hockey is shooting. The crew of the Golden Lion pirate group shouted in shock. Golden Lion also narrowed his eyes at this time and stared at Jiāng Liú. Of course he knows the strength of the opponent, but after not seeing him for so long, the opponent seems to have become stronger. What a terrible man. Chapter 188. Advertise here. Hoo. On the coast of Jalo Island, the air current was rolling and spreading away in waves, and ripples appeared in the sea nearby. Two powerful auras collided fiercely. When the big pirates meet, whether it is an ally or an enemy, the confrontation in spirit seems to have become a routine. The wind is getting louder and louder, and the pressure on the crew on both sides is getting bigger and bigger. On the pirate ship behind Golden Lion, it was obvious that someone could no longer hold it, and was swaying. The people next to him were quick to hold him. This is a big scene, so be sober, don't shame us. The cadres shouted and said, but fine sweat oozes from their foreheads, and the world's top big pirates collided with each other, and even they still felt great pressure. Because under such a scene, you can't guess whether the two sides will fight soon. Even the allies, but the alliance between the pirates, betrayal and fighting just in a blink of an eye, there is no trust at all. Jahahaha. Jiāng Liú, I am very happy to see you grow up to this point. In this way, your alliance can continue. Golden Lion Shiki suddenly laughed and spoke, and his aura was also reduced in an instant. In contrast, Jiāng Liú's aura was also withdrawn. The oppressive Kamui pressure finally dissipated at this moment, letting the pirates on both sides of the scene breathe a sigh of relief. It is finally over. It looks like you can't fight anymore. You can breathe a sigh of relief. The pirates murmured in their hearts. The Golden Lion jumped down from the bow. Behind him, a group of cadres also followed, and they soon came to Jiāng Liú. This time I'm here, I want to talk to you about things we've discussed before. He spoke directly, not tactfully at all. Jiāng Liú squinted his eyes, then smiled and said, please come from the island, come from afar, naturally you will have a banquet and hospitality. Jahahaha. Golden Lion Shiki laughed. In a blink of an eye, the cadres from both sides have already entered the city of Jalo Island. Here is a huge square, with wine jars being hugged from all sides from time to time, exuding a strong aroma of wine. At the same time, one meal after another was quickly brought up and placed in the open-air square. The people of the two pirate groups, sitting together in chaos, were laughing and eating and drinking, and the atmosphere seemed happy. In the deepest position, the two captains sat face to face. In front of them, each placed a huge wine bowl, and beside them was a wine jar. So, what do you want to discuss with me when you come to me this time? Shiki. Jiāng Liú's eyes condensed slightly, and he said in a deep voice. He picked up the wine jar in one hand and filled his bowl with wine. You and I formed an alliance in that battle and set the goal of jointly controlling the entire world. This time, I will naturally come to you to do this important thing. With your current strength, there is no doubt that we can start preparing for this matter. Golden Lion's words are ambitious and impassioned. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly after listening. Taking control of the world and doing it together is a false proposition in itself. In the end, only one person can control and win the sea. One piece, there can only be one. The second one cannot be called a king, it can only be a pseudo-king. However, partial cooperation can be carried out, and decisions can be made afterwards. The world of the pirates is so intrigued. As pure and simple as in anime, it may not last long in this real world. Even a strong top powerhouse will die from a backstab. Let's talk about it. What do you want to do when you came to see me this time? Jiāng Liú's voice came out slowly. Not far away, Letterfield, Waldo and others gathered together. The atmosphere seemed a bit nervous. No one spoke, everyone was drinking. Someone's eyes floated to the location of Jiāng Liú and Golden Lion from time to time. They know very well that what the two people talk about next will probably affect the whole world deeply. Golden Lion raised the wine bowl in his hand, and Jiāng Liú also raised it. The two quickly clinked their glasses and then drank their heads up. It's very simple. In today's world, there are not many people who can stop you and me from being king. There are only 2 or 3. Then, let's wipe out these 2 or 3 people, all the forces. This sea, this whole world, naturally belongs to us. An agitated voice rang into Jiāng Liú's ears, making him laugh. Quote. Who do you want to eliminate first? Quote. Golden Lion's eyes condensed and he uttered a name, Brother Roger. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. Jiāng Liú did not respond for a while. He was pouring wine, and it was indeed a waste of wine to talk about such a big event. Undoubtedly, Golden Lion's big plan, ambitious, seems a bit rough and even draws big pie. How can it be so simple to do such a slogan to dominate the sea and the world? Just being a one piece, Golden Lion's qualifications seem a little insufficient. When Jiāng Liú listened to what the other party said, he was naturally noncommittal. If you can't tell the day, he went to war with the guy in front of him, and just listened to these words. However, the other party spoke at this moment, wanting both parties to join forces to deal with Roger. Kill the future One Piece first. Then, from the remaining people, compete for the future king. Jiāng Liú raised his head with a smile on his face, raised the wine in the bowl, and then touched it towards the other party. It's a good idea. After Golden Lion heard it, his eyes lit up and laughed out loud. Jahahaha. So, did you agree to my invitation? Jiāng Liú drank the bowl of wine in one sip, then grinned and said, why don't you wear a towel? Yeah, why not? Kill Roger. In this world, who else can stop him from becoming the king of pirates? The Golden Lion in front of you. Or the unmotivated Whitebeard Newgate. Collect 4 red historical texts, find the ultimate island, and gain insight into the ultimate truth and mystery of this world, and he will become the One Piece. Based on this, what can that great reputation, wealth, and status bring to him? He will rule the entire sea and become a veritable maritime overlord. Beyond anyone in the past, beyond the previous rocks. This is a glass of Tuong's wine. It makes sense to drink. Chapter 189. Advertise here. The captains of the 2 pirate regiments drank very happily. The crew below are naturally more excited. Pirates were originally eclectic. They were still fighting for life and death 1 second before putting away their weapons. They also experienced a lot of this kind of thing. Golden Lion is a very proud man and a captain with ambitious ambitions. In contrast, Jiāng Liú's strength and courage has also impressed the world. Such 2 people, 2 pirate group alliances, working together in the future, the energy produced is extremely huge and amazing, and it will also shock the world. The banquet was held until noon on the second day, and the whole square was drunk. Even Jiāng Liú and Golden Lion fell down, snoring constantly, and fell asleep to death. After a short conversation, 2 pirate groups were finalized. The next big thing to do together is undoubtedly a successful banquet. Of course, it is not so easy to chase and intercept Roger. They must determine Roger's location next and make a detailed plan. The risks involved are equally huge. At the same time, the news of Golden Lion's arrival at Karo Island had already spread above the sea. The forces of the quartet were all shocked at this moment. Naval headquarters, in the marshal's office. Golden Lion Shiki and Jiāng Liú, have they met on Jalo Island? These 2 ambitious guys want to further deepen their alliance. Now they are together, they don't know what they are going to do. Shiki took his fleet to go with a menacing force, absolutely nothing good. Sora's face was solemn, and his brows were very tight. He felt a gust of wind and rain, and he was under great pressure. On the next sea surface, I don't know what will happen. Notify Garp, Sengoku, and Zephyr so that they are ready to fight at any time. These 2 guys join forces, we have to guard against. Soon, Sora said in a deep voice to the officer next to him. Yes, Master Marshal. The officer nodded, and then walked down dignifiedly. He knew very well what this sudden news from the second half of the channel meant to Marine and the world. The two behemoths should have been in a hostile relationship. However, they are weirdly united. Such a thing is too shocking. The news spread quickly, and the Moby Dick boarded. Golden Lion's flying fleet has arrived at Jiāng Island and joined Jiāng Liú and the others. Father, what do these two guys want to do? Marco said with a solemn expression. Soon, you will know. But it can be expected that what the two ambitious guys are conspiring is absolutely extraordinary. Whitebeard's voice is low and his eyes are sharp. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Jiāng Liú's subsequent actions and behaviors may subvert the image that has always been in his mind. When Marco heard this, his brows frowned. In all fairness, they are not willing to go to war with Jiāng Liú and others. They used to have deep feelings. However, the following trends and conditions are likely to be difficult to avoid fighting. It's really a headache. With a light sigh, Marco said. He looked forward, the figure with his back facing him, complexion. It is conceivable that the most uncomfortable pain in my heart today is probably my dad. Whether it is Kazuki Oden or Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, they have truly established a deep relationship with the old man. The friendship between the three of them is brotherly, and the brothers have an operation. No matter who it is difficult to accept this kind of thing. On the other side, on a remote and desolate island. More than a dozen pirate boats are docked here, and there is a campfire on the shore. The meat of the wild beasts just caught is roasting on it. The strong smell of meat is released, which makes people appetite. The atmosphere seemed a little silent, the bonfire was burning and crackling, except for the sound of swallowing while drinking. Boom, boom. A large amount of wine was spilled and poured on the ground. Kaido drank half of the gourd in one breath, and then glanced at the crew in front of him with cold expression. For your sake of being smart this time, you saved me again and let you go. The three big billboards lowered their heads and dared not make a sound. One thing to say is that their performance in fighting the Black Flag is indeed disappointing. With the captain's cruel character, it is good to be able to save a life. What has happened to Black Flag recently? After a while, Kaido asked again. This. Jack hesitated and looked up. But he looked at the other two big billboards. Neither of them spoke, and still lowered their heads. After a daze, they were silent again. The two eldest brothers did not speak, he was in the limelight, fearing that he would suffer. However, it was too late, and Kaido had already fixed his eyes on him. Say, Jack, do you want to violate my orders? The terrifying aura squeezed on Jack's body for a moment, making him want to slap himself in the face. I blame myself for being so honest and having to deal with Captain Jack who was in a bad mood. Old, boss, and the situation of Haichi, I just heard about it, but I'm not sure. Scratching his head, Jack buzzed. Kaido glanced at him, and the cold light made Jack stiff. They now occupy 30 islands, and they have risen rapidly. Only the number of ships has reached 100, and the number of pirate members has exceeded 10,000. Taking a sharp breath, Jack said loudly. Then, he continued with a numb scalp. I heard that within these 2 days, the Golden Lion pirate group arrived at Jiāng Island again and joined Jiāng Liú to form an alliance. This news shocked the whole world. Jack shouted. The sound stopped abruptly here, and the atmosphere became even more dull. After a while, Kaido lifted the wine gourd in his hand and poured wine into his mouth. Boom, boom. After the gulp, his face suddenly became sullen, and his eyes swept towards Jack, making his whole body tight, his expression frightened. Immediately after, Kaido shook his hand, and the wine gourd slammed straight into Jack's face. Snapped. The wine gourd fell apart, and Jack fell heavily and flew out. The other crew members shivered as they watched this scene, and the other two big billboards lowered their heads, still afraid to speak. That's why they didn't speak just now. Captain Kaido was furious, but it was very difficult to deal with. It really allowed him to develop well for a while. But, Kaido, I will never let him live so well. I never admit failure. Kaido let out a low roar, his eyes cold. Chapter 190. Advertise here. Whirring. Above the sea, the wind howled, the sea undulated violently, the sky was densely covered with dark clouds, and the thunder was faintly visible in it. A dog-headed warship was moving steadily. Blue. Suddenly, the phone worm's rapid voice rang, awakening Garp, who was standing at the bow of the ship, who was sleeping. Garp Vice Admiral, is from the headquarters information. The officer next to him said softly. Oh, all right. Garp said vaguely with sleepy eyes, and then took the call worm. Who? Excuse me from sleeping. The person on the other side was obviously speechless, and only after a moment of silence did he speak again. Garp Vice Admiral, Marshal Sora has new news and orders for you. Garp stretched out his finger to dig his nose, and flicked it on Marine's clothes not far away, causing him to shake his whole body. Then he said, say it. Currently, the latest news is that the Black Flag Group has already been in alliance with the Flying Pirates, and the two sides have met and joined forces in the Black Restricted Area on Karo Island. Garp listened, his dim eyes suddenly became clear, and his expression became serious. So, what is Sora's plan? He has notified Sengoku, Zephyr Admiral, and other Marine Vice Admiral to go to the second half and join you. This time, the impact was huge, so Marshal Sora, Hope that Garp Vice Admiral will not act impulsively and act without authorization. The voice of the phone worm seemed indifferent and steady. He hopes that after the three Admiral meet, they can be ready to fight at any time to cope with the next, or perhaps, upcoming major changes. Garp's face shimmered slightly when he heard the words, really. Haichi and Feikong have joined forces, which has undoubtedly shocked the world. I am afraid that even the 5 old fellows of the world government would not have thought of such a thing. Can you just ask, what is Garp Vice Admiral doing now? Suddenly, a voice came from the phone worm. Me, I just found Roger and I'm hunting him down. Garp looked at the sea ahead and said with a big smile. The sky was scary and the sea was undulating, but the storm did not come. I still hope you can restrain yourself and don't be impulsive. The person in the phone worm on the other side was taken aback, and said helplessly. But he didn't hear Garp's voice, because the other party had already hung up the phone worm, and he was neat and tidy without any muddle. Jiāng Liú cooperated with Golden Lion, which is really a great misfortune. Shaking his head, Garp said in a deep voice. He looked at the front, and based on his IQ, it was naturally impossible to judge the purpose of the two groups of people together, but he had a keen feeling in his heart, telling him what the purpose of the two people was. Is it Roger? Slowly raising his head, Garp looked at the sea ahead. The Roger Pirates group was located on the sea not far in front of him. He pursued it all the way, but he did not expect to receive such news. Next, it seems that there will be a big storm. Muttered, Garp looked up at the sky. Then he took a deep breath and grinned. Speed up the boat and catch up with Roger. But, doesn't the order from the headquarters make you wait for Admiral, Sengoku and Zephyr? The officer stunned. This time, I didn't think about fighting Roger. Compared to fighting. After a pause, Garp narrowed his eyes. I have more important things to talk to him. The words fell, dark clouds covered the sky, and golden lightning resounded loudly. Boom. But with such changes in the sky, there was still no heavy rain pouring down, only the wind became more anxious. The breath in the air seemed to be more solidified and anxious. The Dog's Head warship accelerated and chased forward quickly. On the sea not far from the warship, the sails of the Jackson swelled and were moving slowly. Roger, we seem to be targeted. A flash of light flashed under Rayleigh's glasses, looking at the black spot on the stern, and said condensedly. Really? Ha 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 ha, I seem to be able to guess the identity of the person. Roger laughed. Rayleigh took the binoculars handed by Jabba next to him, raised it, and looked behind him. After a moment, he looked at Roger. I think the person you guessed should be correct. It's Garp. Roger said. Marine, only Garp can chase you so tightly. Rayleigh said with a smile and put down the binoculars. Ha 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 ha. Roger laughed again, but soon his eyes narrowed, and he looked at the sea above the sea and under the dark clouds, rushing towards the warship coming from him. Find flowers. This time, it seems a little different, he is here for other things. Rayleigh was startled, not understanding how Roger would know such a thing. Can it be seen from the speed and running posture of the boat? He shook his head to dispel this ridiculous method. So, what is left can only be the feeling of cherishing each other among friends. So, this time, should you stay away from him? Roger. Rayleigh asked with a smile. Garp is undoubtedly a difficult opponent. In this sea, the last thing Roger wants to meet is the opponent. The two sides have played too many times, and therefore they are all very familiar with each other. Garp is very tough and strong, and it is difficult for the two sides to distinguish between the winner and the loser. 0. Roger heard this question, but was silent for a moment, and finally looked up at the warship ahead and smiled slightly. No, this time, we are here waiting for him. Rayleigh froze, then nodded. Then it's up to you. Soon, the Kotu warship came to the front of Jackson and came to a halt slowly. The bows of the two ships collided and swung lightly. On the Jackson, everyone condensed and looked at the warship. Suddenly, a figure leapt high and came to them. It was Garp. Immediately afterwards, a few more figures quickly came to their boat, but compared to Garp, their expressions were tense. You are too impulsive, Garp Vice Admiral. At this time, it's crazy to be on Roger's boat. A nervous voice rang in everyone's ears. When Garp heard the words, he burst into laughter. He glanced at the Roger pirates present. It's okay, I'm here this time, not to fight Roger. His aura alone was quite compelling, and he directly contended with the aura of the Roger pirates. So, Garp, why are you suddenly here? Roger asked with a smile while hugging his arms without any movement. Neither side meant anything to go to war. Flying pirates and Black Flag, their forces have merged. They form an alliance. Garp's expression changed, and he said in a deep voice. 10,000. Chapter 191. Advertise here. The low, solemn, and serious voice instantly spread on the Jackson, which made the ship's already condensed atmosphere even more depressing. The complexions of Jabba, Bullet, Shanks, Buggy and other crew members changed in horror at this moment and became extremely solemn. They couldn't imagine what it would mean for the world to join such two pirate groups. But it is certain that this must be a turning point in the future direction of the world. Both of these two huge pirate groups had dealt with each other, and they knew the strength and fear of each other. A Golden Lion pirate group once forced them into danger, and a Black Flag pirate group met on a narrow road on Sky Island and had friction. In particular, Shanks and Buggy were even more impressed with the trainee crew members of the pirate group, and they can remember them for a lifetime. Yes, that's something that the world can't even imagine. Roger's expression also became serious, and he said in a deep voice. So, I'm here for you. Roger. Garp's face was dark and he spoke. The two looked at each other, and you could see that each other's expressions were very serious, and at the same time, they both faintly understood the other's thoughts. You mean, the goal of these two people, is it me? Garp. Roger said directly, his face serious. I think you should feel it too. Garp said. Roger's eyes grew deep, and he didn't respond anymore. Instead, he stared at the sea in front of him and started thinking. Indeed, he and Garp's hunches are basically the same. The union of these two groups came on their own. There is no doubt that in accordance with this trend, one of these two people will become a bad guy like Rocks in the future. Whether it is for the world or for the pirates, it will have a fatal impact. Garp said in a deep voice. His voice was low and deep, and after it was spread out, it put tremendous pressure on the crew of Roger Pirates. The situation is indeed for them, it seems very bad. You came to me specially, what are you going to do, Garp? There was a smile at the corner of Roger's mouth. He faintly understood the other party's thoughts, so he relaxed and smiled at the same time. As with the last time we dealt with Rocks, you and I unite to completely suppress this trend of rising evil forces. Roger laughed when he heard the words, we really are confidants, Garp, you are exactly the same as I thought. Garp rolled his eyes. I'm Marine, who will be your confidant with you, a pirate. However, our height of thinking and our view of the world are all the same. Isn't this a confidant? Roger laughed. After a while, he put away his laughter and smiled slightly. However, if you join hands with me, this time, I will feel more at ease. Garp let out a sigh. If it wasn't for the situation, I would never join forces with a guy like you. Roger laughed again. He stretched out his right hand. Garp also stretched out slowly, and then both hands were held together tightly. Although they are enemies, the trust between the two parties in each other is beyond doubt. This may be the tacit understanding between the two and the sympathy that arises during the battle. Time passed slowly, and half a month passed in a blink of an eye. Within the black restricted area, the islands are all moving, and a large number of ships can be seen every day, quickly shuttle between the islands. The atmosphere seemed tense and deep, and all the crew of the Black Flag knew they were preparing for battle. The top management did not disclose who the opponent was, but such an intense and solemn action and such a large amount of artillery accumulation still made them feel heavy. There is no doubt that the enemy may be very powerful. On Kaluo Island, in terms of the battle plan, your people really have more experience. Actually, even the allies Roger may have, who is the sudden enemy, are deduced to deal with it. Jiāng Liú, your kid is really a terrible guy. The solemn voice of Golden Lion sounded in the spacious room. There is no doubt that the other party's IQ in this preparatory action against Roger is extremely terrifying. And this also means that once the two fall out, the other side will use the same means to target themselves. Therefore, after seeing this series of operations, Golden Lion felt not joy, but dignity and pressure. If Roger was replaced by him, how would he respond? This is a problem that makes his scalp numb, and Golden Lion's heart becomes serious. When human beings face problems, they must always plan ahead, otherwise, when a real crisis comes, they will appear to be in a hurry. This is also the difference between humans and beasts. They will foresee the danger and resolve it in advance. Jiāng Liú said with a chuckle. The combat effectiveness of the Black Flag pirate group is still increasing. In today's fleet, the number of pirate ships has reached 120, and each ship is equipped with powerful artillery and shells. It can be said that with the current power of the Black Flag, it is no problem to launch a Buster Call-style destruction. Starting a large-scale battle is also not a difficult thing. In fact, the Black Flag has become the top pirate group in the world today. Golden Lion narrowed his eyes slightly, and did not respond to this. He felt that he was suppressed by the other party in terms of IQ. This is not a good topic. The place of the war is still chosen to be in the sea area of 8 Wall. Fate will not favor a person twice. I firmly believe this. Golden Lion Shiki said in a deep voice. You are indeed a person who refuses to accept your fate, Shiki. Jiāng Liú smiled. But he didn't care. The waters of 8 Wall were indeed a good fighting area, and storms were not the norm there. When the weather is clear, the benefits to their two fleets are obvious. The storm encountered by Golden Lion was an accident, so Roger would be called the man favored by fate. Then set it in the waters of 8 Wall. Next, I will let the fleet go to that sea area and get ready. After a pause, Jiāng Liú looked at Shiki. Your people also need to be prepared. Since we have decided to do it, we will do it well. Golden Lion Shiki looked serious and nodded. I know what to do. On the second day, the two pirate regiments began their operations. The scenes of a large number of pirate boats moving alarmed people on the entire sea. Chapter 192. Advertise here. In the second half of the Grand Line, it can be said that recently, the pirate group hovering above the waters outside the Black restricted area, as well as the various forces, are extremely concerned about the movement in the area ahead. On this day, the sun was shining, the breeze was blowing, the sea was sparkling, and fish leapt out of the water to watch the vast world. Several pirate boats flying the skull flag, boringly docked not far away. Some of the pirates on the boat were fishing, some were taking a nap. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of him, the fisherman trembled, and the man almost dropped from the boat. The entire face became even more frightened and nervous. Black, 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 black. Even the speech was affected, and it was not clear. Yo 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 yo. Behind him, a pirate with explosive head and tattoos everywhere danced in response. Black flag. Suddenly, a loud roar resounded across the sea. The Afro pirate trembled all over, turned around abruptly, and looked at the sea. On weekdays, 10 huge ships flying black flags suddenly rushed out of the black forbidden area where there was no movement. The Shanghai thief was awe-inspiring, and the dark cannon glowed with a dark light, aimed at them, making people tremble in their hearts. Why are you still stunned? Avoid it. Want to die, you guys. The captain screamed and rushed over, his roar resounding in everyone's ears. In an instant, everyone on the ship started to move, and several ships immediately turned and moved to the side. After a while, 10 warships flying black flags passed by the sea where they had just docked. The captain in the lead just glanced at them slightly, then looked back, his complexion calm, and he didn't seem to care. Is this the Black Flag pirate group? It's just an ordinary captain of a fleet, who has such a temperament. It's terrible. The captain hid on one side, watching with a telescope, and said with lingering fear. Compared with such a behemoth, their pirate group is nothing at all. But where are they going if such a fleet leaves the base camp of the Black Flag? With doubts on his face, the captain was thinking. But shortly thereafter, within the black restricted area, another group of fleets flying different flags also rushed out, driving in the direction of the Black Flag at a very fast speed. It's a member of the Flying Pirates. The captain was shocked. First, the Black Flag, then the Golden Lion, and the two fleets set off one after another. This scene is incredible. Something big is going to happen. Even the duller people reacted at this moment. The captain's forehead oozes fine beads of sweat, and he only feels nervous in his heart. He looked ahead. Although the sea was calm, there was a peculiar feeling of wind and rain. In the next time, the captain, hiding in the nearby waters, observed with a telescope, and completely captured the Black Flag and the two pirate groups flying in the air. Every few days, there will be a group of fleets appearing, heading to unknown seas. There will definitely be a big action. Gradually, another month passed. Adding the two fleets together, nearly 100 pirate ships have sailed out. It's unbelievable, and it's unimaginable how powerful they are. When will this situation end? The captain was shocked. This is absolutely spectacular. It is impossible to imagine how magnificent and suffocating the scene of the gathering of hundreds of warships. He thought it would be over now, but in the next month, within the black restricted area, there were still a steady stream of pirate ships sailing out. It has been maintained for 2 months before this trend has gradually stopped. 200 pirate ships, each one is fully armed, and the pirates are ready. It's suffocating. Although I haven't witnessed it with my own eyes, I just imagined it and I can't breathe. The captain murmured in his heart. On this day, he still chose to stay here and did not leave. When the sun rose directly above his head and the sun was warm, 2 pirate boats appeared in his eyes. This is. The captain's eyes widened. He saw the flagship of the 2 most powerful pirate groups in the world. Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, the captain of the Black Flag Pirates, and the cadres, Letterfield, Waldo, Cyrus, Karma, Sebastian. Everyone was dispatched. There is also the Flying Pirates, Golden Lion Shiki. What are they going to do? The captain felt dizzy. Behind him, all the crew members were stunned at the moment, only feeling dry. Facing such a pirate group head-on, their pressure is too great. The 2 huge flagships passed by slowly, almost passing them by, and the entire pirate ship, including the captain, stood there. They were trembling all over. No, at this moment, even trembling seemed to be impossible, and they were stiff. At the same time, on the Black Pearl, the Sea of 8 Wall, which is where the Golden Lion almost destroyed the Roger pirates. That battle was very famous and it was also called the Sea Battle of 8 Wall. Roger has been hailed as the man favored by the destiny since that war. There are many people in the world who firmly believe that if there is one piece in this world, it will definitely be him. We chose to fight here. In a sense, we are fighting against the sky. Bin Jack said in a deep voice. Shiki is a man who doesn't believe in destiny. Jiāng Liú said with a smile. After a pause, he said again. Me too. Man can conquer the sky. I believe this statement even more. He stared at the sea ahead. What will happen to this battle, he cannot predict. Fight with the protagonist of this era in a sea of fate. Undoubtedly, this is against the sky. However, what Jiāng Liú had to do was to overcome this day. Whether we win or lose, this battle will lay the foundation for me to become a king. Jiāng Liú said softly. Bin Jack was taken aback for a moment, and he didn't understand. Roger can become the son of destiny in this sea area. What Jiāng Liú has to do is steal his qualification to be favored by fate. When history repeats itself and roles change, I can also become the protagonist. With deep eyes, Jiāng Liú said softly. This battle was a battle to defeat Roger and also a battle to rob destiny. A few days later, they reached the waters of Atwar. Here is a deep sea. The sky was breeze slowly, and the sea was calm and waveless. But the war that shocked the world has already begun at this moment. Chapter 193. Advertise here. The sea breeze is blowing slowly, the sea is sparkling, and occasionally there are ripples in some places. It is the appearance of a fish leaping and falling. The sky is cloudless and blue, everything seems very quiet, without any waves. This is the sea area of Atwal, a very ordinary day in the thousands of days and nights. On the sea, 2 ships came slowly. Come here again, Roger, do you have any special feelings? Garp stood on the bow of the warship and said with a big smile. In my life, I have escaped the perilous desperation countless times. This sea area is just one day and one place in the past. Roger stared at the sea ahead, with a faint smile on his face. Ha 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 ha, but that time to the outside world, but you Roger was the closest to death. Garp said loudly. I don't deny it. Roger nodded. The sea area of Atwal, this is an ordinary sea area, but because of his battle with the Golden Lion, it is famous all over the world. He was here, facing death, surrounded by 100 times his own strength, and fell into a desperate situation. If it were not for the sudden change in the sky, then the battle might end him and his partner. Golden Lion, Shiki, there is no doubt that the enemies he faces are quite difficult. The 2 boats continued to drive forward side by side, and no one spoke. This ordinary sea area has been given a special historical significance. Now, this ordinary day in life, what will happen in this sea area? Suddenly, fine black spots appeared on the sea ahead, and on the 2 ships, Roger and Garp's complexion changed slightly. They naturally know that such black spots are unexpectedly above the sea. It's Shiki. Rayleigh picked up the telescope and said in a deep voice. In the same place, our old opponents are really persevering towards me. Roger grinned. The rest of the people on the boat pulled out their weapons at this moment, looking serious and solemn. Compared with the previous time, the number of enemies has increased, Roger. Jabba exclaimed. Roger's eyes condensed, but he didn't panic, but smiled. If you can escape in front of his Golden Lion once, there will be a second time. Don't worry, everyone. His words eased the tension on the boat. After sailing for so long, they naturally understand the power of their captain. Wow, this is the first time I have seen a fleet of this size. As the other party Golden Lion Shiki. What about Jiāng Liú who is in alliance with him? Where is Jiāng Liú? Kazuki Oden yelled and jumped onto the bow, looking at the fleet ahead in surprise. The dense flying pirate group fleet, because of the distance, is just a black spot at this time, but it can be seen with the naked eye that they are quickly approaching, zooming in, and becoming clear. Hearing Jiāng Liú, Roger and Rayleigh's complexion changed slightly. Douglas Bullet suddenly turned his head, and then his complexion changed drastically. Our rear. Behind the Jackson, at the sea surface 200 or 300 meters apart, there was a sudden agitation, and then the surface of the water rolled upside down. Wow! Water splashed in all directions, and the huge pirate ship appeared in front of them in an instant. 1, 2, 3, 10, 30, 50, 80, 100, 120. The huge fleet quickly caught the eyes of the entire Roger pirate group at this moment, making them all stunned there. The colorful rays of light gleamed, and the cracks of broken coatings echoed in everyone's ears, like artillery. For example, such a huge fleet. Kazuki Oden yelled, and the 2 cats and dogs behind him stared. It's the black flag. Jiāng Liú took his fleet and appeared behind us. This person is too much. Persevere unexpectedly. We are surrounded. On the Roger pirate ship, the crew yelled one after another, seeming a little flustered. In the front is the fleet of Golden Lion Shiki, and behind is the fleet of Black Flag. They are caught in the middle, making dumplings. Jiāng Liú kid. Garp looked serious and said in a deep voice. Roger also held the long knife around his waist at this moment and stared at the sea ahead, the fleet still shaking, the black flags hunting and shaking on the masts, his eyes condensed. There is no doubt that they accidentally entered each other's encirclement. Turn the bow and rush out of the encirclement. Jabba shouted. Anyone facing such a siege is desperate. More than 200 warships armed to the teeth surrounded them on the sea. Such pressure and threat are unimaginable. Brothers, don't be afraid. If you tremble just like this, you will be too embarrassed of our Roger pirates. Roger drew his long knife and shouted loudly. Everyone swallowed and yelled in unison. Yes, Captain. Quote. Afterwards, they all took their place, pulled out their weapons, and were ready for battle. There is no doubt that this is a difficult battle, and the purpose of the actions of the 2 fleets is already very obvious. Garp. Soon. Roger roared again. Roger. Garp looked serious and looked forward. 2 huge fleets were already in ambush in this sea area, and their purpose was for Roger. Such a thing is almost incredible. No wonder Kong reminded him early that he must wait for the other 2 admiral before he can act. Such a force is too amazing. This time, I need your help. Roger roared. Of course, this is the purpose of our union. Garp said solemnly. The Golden Lion's fleet is approaching quickly, and even far away, it can already be seen that there is a roar from the distant sea, like a tsunami. And the flying black flags, right now in front of them, seemed inexplicably quiet. Compared with the flying pirates of Golden Lion, the weird and calmness of the black flag is even more frightening and fearful. Suddenly, a pitch-black artillery muzzle aimed at them after the white pirate ship in front had turned around. The fleet of the black flag spread out in a fan shape, covering a large area of the sea, and the momentum showed a touch of calm in the calm. Dangerous and cold. Fire. A loud roar suddenly resounded across the sea. Thousands of artillery roared almost for an instant, and the pitch-black shells roared out of the barrel, drawn a parabola, rose to the highest point, and crashed down towards the Jackson. Protect the ship. Everyone, use your life. Roger flicked his long knife, a cold light appeared, and his voice was serious and serious. Next, we will enter a hellish desperate situation. Chapter 194. Advertise here. Boom. The sky is clear and blue. But the deafening sound made the heart of everyone present throb, and the adrenaline soared at this moment. The black pressed shells formed a huge shadow curtain, drawing countless parabola, with a strong smell of gunpowder smoke, filling the sky over the entire sea. In a blink of an eye, gunfire covered the front of the Jackson. The hot wind and waves swelled the sails of the Jackson almost instantly, and the hair of the crew on it fluttered. Everyone's expressions are extremely serious, and the weapons in their hands are quietly clenched. Odin, I'm really embarrassed to face you in such a desperate situation just after joining. Roger said, his eyes solemn. The muscles of his right arm swelled, and the long knife in his hand shook suddenly and swung forward. At this moment, the void trembled. Then, a sharp slash came out, and a huge lightning flashed in the sky, a piece of shells exploded, and rumbling. The flames joined together in an instant, and the entire void reflected in it turned red. With the hotter wind blowing, the Jackson was blown and retreated back, and the sea was rippling and rattling. The high temperature spread, so that the surface of the sea boiled, and a lot of white mist appeared. Kazuki Odin's mouth was twisted by the hot wind. He held two knives, like Roger, leaping high and brandishing both knives. Boom. The sky was cut open, a large piece of cannonball was directly cut in half, and the rumble burst into one piece again. But when Kazuki Odin fell, his complexion was still very solemn. There were too many shells, and the two quickly shot them, but they were still not out of danger. A large number of artillery shells have been screaming and falling. Boom 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 boom. The sea shook, bursting out large splashes of water, and the Jackson was submerged in the sound of one after another. From the side of the Black Flag pirate group, almost all of the sea in front was covered by artillery fire. With such an intensive blow, almost no one really came out alive. But when the smoke dissipated, everyone's eyes widened. A pirate ship, with bulging sails and hunting jitters, quickly moved forward. On both sides of him, there were still shells falling continuously, hitting the water surface, bursting out spray. The pirate on the boat was panting with madness in his eyes. On the Black Pearl, Jiāng Liú stood on the bow with his arms in his arms and a smile on his mouth. If the protagonist of the era is so easy to be eliminated, I will find it boring. The Jackson was moving fast, his side of the ship was facing the Black Flag fleet, and the other side was facing the flying fleet that was rushing in. Roger tried to get out of this huge and long encirclement, but it was undoubtedly a difficult thing. Slowly raising his hand, Jiāng Liú spoke lightly to the phone bug in front of him. Keep firing. The moment the 4 words were exported, there were loud roars from hundreds of pirate ships. Fire! Fire! Keep firing on lousy. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the dense cannonball curtain once again covered the entire sky. It seemed as if a crow covered the sky and the sun, making a harsh whistling sound, and the white smoke filled the sky, reflected in everyone's eyes. This is a rare spectacle that shocked countless people's hearts. But unlike this, the people on the Jackson. Here again, Captain. Buggy yelled, her voice trembling, and her whole body was shaking. Under such a situation, almost every moment is infinitely approaching death, which is terrifying. Shanks next to him, holding short sword in his hands, gritted his teeth. In such a scene, there seems to be no difference in strength. As long as the ship is broken, they will all be buried in the sea. This calm sea seems to have no lethality, but it is the most powerful enemy of the pirates. Protect yourself, protect the ship. Believe in yourself, we can rush out of here. Roger roared loudly. He swung out his long knife again, his eyes glared, and the void shook, and countless shells exploded again at this moment. Behind them, Garp's iron fists continued to bombard, and the artillery shells in the void continued to explode, and hot flames appeared in front of everyone again. The people on the Jackson were also roaring, fighting the sky cannonballs. This kind of artillery coverage is not inferior to Marine's Buster Call, and even exceeds. Kazuki Odin glared at the darkened fleet ahead, took a deep breath, and also waved the long knife in his hand. After a while, as a sea of flames ignited, the Jackson disappeared before everyone's eyes again. But after a while, the sea of flames was shaken away, and Jackson and the warships behind them appeared in everyone's eyes again. Captain. Waldo was shocked. He was stunned by Roger's tenacious vitality, and he rushed out under the cover of such artillery fire, which was incredible. Don't underestimate his strength, Waldo. If nothing happens, Roger can become the king of this era. Jiāng Liú's voice is low, but his complexion is still calm. One Piece, it's not that easy to destroy. He is here today in order to destroy the opponent and seize his unstoppable king's luck. Afterwards, he spoke lightly again. Fire. A new round of artillery coverage has begun again, and every second of such an attack is throwing out unlimited money. But in order to deal with Roger, Jiāng Liú thought it was worth it. However, the Roger pirates escaped again. Behind them, flames burned on the sea, and the high temperature caused the sea to boil white mist, and countless fish were cooked, exuding a strong fish fragrance. Continue. After a while, Jiāng Liú spoke again. The sound of artillery fire rang again. For this battle, the Black Flag pirates had prepared for a long time. A large number of shells and artillery were already in place. In this silent battle, the people on the Jackson were more or less accompanied by physical and mental exhaustion. If this goes on, how long can we last? Damn, how could they have such a powerful firepower? Too despicable, have the ability to fight with us directly. Even if you have 100,000, what can you do? The people on the Jackson roared when they saw the sky full of cannonballs. They are willing to stand and fight to death, but they do not want to be worn out by such a fight, and finally die. War. There's never been a scumbag, guys. Please trust me, I will definitely lead you. Roger took a deep breath and spoke slowly, his eyes awe-inspiring. Live. Chapter 195. Advertise here. Chi-chi-chi-chi-chi. The white mist was drifting with the wind, and the sea surface made a series of low noises because of the explosion of hot shells. The shells were still drawing a parabola and falling around the Jackson, like a meteor shower roaring down, with a shocking momentum. Speed up the boat, brothers. We escape here. Roger tore his upper body robe to pieces, exposing his strong abdominal muscles, and said loudly. Rayleigh held up his glasses and looked at the Black Flag pirates' fleet, which was still quiet on the opposite side, with unprecedented dignity in his eyes. This is the first time he has seen such a pirate group atmosphere. It can be seen that the discipline and action of this fleet are also extremely amazing. Compared with the flying pirates of Golden Lion, the gap is obvious. Time is passing, and the artillery fire is still noisy. The Roger pirates seizes every second, every opportunity, crazily interspersed in various gaps, and flees quickly. It's been a long time since I realized the feeling of being chased and fleeing in embarrassment it's been. Ha 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 ha. Garp, are you okay? Roger said with a laugh. Garp smashed the cannonball in the void in front of him with a punch. No problem. Boy Jiāng Liú, wanting to use such a covered cannon fodder to destroy us is dreaming. After a brief conversation between the two of them, they concentrated on dealing with the shells again. Such an attack is simple but also effective. Marine and pirates on both ships felt tremendous pressure. Gradually, the people of the Black Flag pirates also realized that such an attack would not work. The Roger pirates are like the most slippery fish, always able to dodge every shell accurately, and dodge left and right on the surface of the sea. Garp's dog-headed warship steadily followed behind Jackson, evading in the same way. Two ships one behind the other, moving fast in the long encirclement of the Black Flag. Captain, such an attack doesn't seem to work. Cyrus frowned. In a short moment, I don't know how many shells were shot out. Such resource consumption, even the Black Flag, will feel distressed. Our goal is not to destroy them in the first round of artillery coverage. Jiāng Liú smiled and looked forward. The flying fleet of Golden Lion has also rushed over. The Jackson, at the moment, was within their range. Fire. Roger, you must die today. This sea is where your bones are buried. The Golden Lion Shiki, who slowly floated into the air, roared loudly. Afterwards, in a mess, the flying pirates also opened fire. Boom 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 boom. The sea is deafening again, and the whole sea is boiling at this moment. Compared to Jiāng Liú, you are much easier to deal with, Shiki. Roger laughed. The encirclement of the two pirate regiments was very long. As they fled, the Black Flag pirate ship was also moving and was quickly catching up. The most dangerous situation in history, Roger felt extremely exciting at this moment. Life is to challenge sublimation in endless danger. Time passed quickly, and an hour passed in a blink of an eye. After the Roger pirates defeated 8 pirate ships, they broke through the fringe encirclement of the Golden Lion pirates. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, everyone on the Jackson laughed loudly. We escaped their encirclement. Survived. What a long day. Voices came out one after another, and everyone felt exhausted at the same time they were excited. The battle is not over yet, take this opportunity to quickly replenish your stamina, friends. Roger laughed. Turning his head and looking towards the stern, nearly 200 warships were chasing them quickly. And at the forefront is the Black Pearl. The other party's ship is not inferior to us. With his eyes condensed slightly, Roger said in a deep voice. The pitch-black jewel-like ship seemed to blend in with the wind, incredibly fast, like flying on the sea. At the same time, on the Black Pearl. Even let them escape. Waldo said loudly, with some anger in his tone. With such alternate artillery coverage attacks, the Roger pirates were able to escape. It was incredible. This was expected, Waldo. Jiāng Liú smiled faintly. Catch up with them, Roger pirates, can't run away today. The Golden Lion Shiki kept roaring on the ship, and all the pirate groups were chasing the two ships in front of them frantically. Find flowers. The sea area of Atwal became extremely lively this day. In the front is the world-famous Roger pirate group, and in the rear are two huge fleets chasing. This frightened the Chance, and by coincidence, the other little pirate groups who witnessed this scene made them stare and sweat. The Roger pirate group is being besieged by the Black Flag and Feikong. My goodness, this is a world event, can Roger escape this chase? Unbelievable, I have witnessed history in this sea. The pursuit continued, and gradually, an island appeared in the eyes of Roger and others. At the speed of the opponent's ship, we may not be able to escape this battle. Place the battlefield on the island ahead. 0. Fight them upright. On the island, even if there are 100,000 people on the other side, we are not afraid. Roger let out a deafening sound, and his fighting spirit rose to the highest level at this time. Being bombarded by artillery fire, being chased, this is not something he can easily endure. On the whole ship, everyone's heart was suffocated with anger. Since you can't escape, then fight a battle and use your strength to decide the victory or defeat. Roger, I have to tell you that your physical condition may not be enough to support a high-intensity duel. Crocus said solemnly, if I can be buried in such a battle, then my life will not be a waste of time. Illness can conquer my body, but it cannot conquer my will. Roger wants to die, only I can kill myself. Roger laughed and said, the breath on his body was extremely domineering at this moment. Sail forward bravely, the battle is not over, no one knows whether it is victory or defeat. His voice was impassioned, shaking the sea. On the Black Pearl. They want to land on the island, do they have a dignified battle on the island ahead? Interesting. Jiāng Liú grinned out, put his right hand on the long knife around his waist, and quickly let go. Keep up with them. Get ready to fight. At the same time, on the island in everyone's eyes. Captain Kaido, it's not good. There is a pirate, marine, coming towards us. 1. Chapter 196. Advertise here. Greenland. This is the second half of the Grand Line, an ordinary island with many beasts and few humans. Kaido Pirates is resting here at this time. After they heard the news of the Black Flag Pirates, they were searching for the location of the Black Flag non-stop. Until recently, came to this sea area. However, he still didn't see the Black Flag ship, so he randomly found an island to settle down. But he didn't expect that by chance, he would join this great battle that shocked future generations. What's the panic? Just a mere pirate. Big Khan Jin shouted in a deep voice. But, the other party may not be an ordinary pirate. The pirate was panting, shocked and nervous on his face. Who is it? Kaido tilted his head, his voice low and his eyes sharp. It's Roger, Roger Pirates, shouted the pirate. When they heard the word Roger, everyone present was stunned. Kaido's eyes squinted in an instant, and the three big signs shook all over. Jack stood up without saying a word and looked at the sea with the binoculars. Soon, the Jackson of the Roger pirate group came into his eyes, and Roger on the ship and the other crew members who were resting and healed also saw clearly. They seem to have just gone through a big battle, and the people on the ship are all wounded, and they are stunned. Jack buzzed. Then he continued to look back. It's Garp's warship. It seems Roger is being captured by Marine. There are also traces of battle on Garp's ship. Jack continued. The other crew members listening to the shore were all concentrating. Etc. Etc. Jack's body suddenly shook, the expression on his face became flustered, and fine beads of sweat leaked out of his forehead. Wrong. He roared, anxiously nervous. What's wrong? Kaido turned around and stared at Kaido coldly. This kid is getting more and more annoying to him, and recently he has always used Jack to vent his anger. It's not that Garp is chasing Roger. But, taking a deep breath, Jack's scalp was numb, and he roared again as he watched the huge fleet surging in quickly. It's a fleet, a pirate fleet consisting of hundreds of ships. Their banner. The telescope moved quickly, and then locked the black flag on the opponent's mast. Black flag, and golden lion. It's the black flag and the golden lion. Hearing these words, Kaido's complexion changed, and he suddenly turned to look at the sea, his huge eyes sharp. He snatched the binoculars, then looked over. Black flag. After a while, a low, angry roar rang out. Sure enough, it was the black flag, plus the golden lion pirate group. The huge fleet formed as rapidly approaching the island. Roger, Garp in the front, turned out to be pursued by these two fleets. This group of people has a clear goal and is coming to where they are. It seems that Roger was defeated. He was defeated by the joint efforts of Jiāng Liú and Shiki. Kaido's face is serious. He has dealt with most of the people in front of him. Especially Jiāng Liú is regarded by him as the greatest enemy in this life. Everyone, get ready for battle. The time for revenge has arrived. Kaido yelled, full of momentum. When the enemy met, Kaido was extremely jealous. At this time, Kaido's blood flowed all over his body and he was full of energy. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, the Roger pirate group had arrived at the port. A group of people quickly jumped off the boat, as did Garp behind. Are you ready for this battle? Roger. Coming to Roger's side, Garp asked in a deep voice. Garp, all of our battles will not wait until we are ready. Now that you have reached this point, let's do it. Victory against them, win dignifiedly, and then leave here. Roger said with a laugh. After that, he looked at a group of people not far away, who were moving quickly toward them. After a slight daze, Roger laughed. Unexpectedly, there will be unexpected guys here. Kaido and the group soon arrived in front of Roger. Interesting, the dignified Roger pirates, they will be chased into this look, and, Marine hero Garp, I didn't expect you to cooperate with the pirates. There was a little sarcasm in Kaido's words. Kaido, what are you doing here? Roger asked. But soon, before the other party answered, he laughed, with a clear look on his face. You are also here for Jiāng Liú. So, it seems that our goals are the same. After speaking, his eyes became a little cold. Stop talking cold words and get ready for the next battle. Then he turned and looked at the sea. Nearly 200 pirate boats had reached the surface of the sea about 3 or 4 kilometers ahead and stopped quietly. On this island, do you believe that they will not continue to bombard with shells? Roger. Garp asked solemnly. Once the opponent unfolds artillery coverage, then there is no doubt that this island will become a bombarded battlefield like Buster Call. Here, they will also be more dangerous. Got a gamble. Roger laughed, his face above his face, but he was not worried. On the Black Pearl, this is to set up a battle, to fight with us. Jiāng Liú sighed softly. The appearance of the other party is undoubtedly a war post. And as a pirate, at this time, he must also respond to this. The captains of the ships, the captains of the teams, all the cadres, get ready for battle. The ship stops here, Black Pearl, landing on the island. Soon, he gave an order to the phone worm in front of him. At the same time, flying in the pirate group. Jahahaha. Roger, you gave up fleeing and want to fight us dignifiedly. His figure floated slowly and headed towards the island. Behind him, all cadres and key members also flocked to the island. After a while, Black Flag, the 2 combat members of the pirate regiment flying in the air, all landed on the island. They did not bring a low-strength crew. In the next battlefield, these people may not even be able to withstand the impact of hockey, and they are useless. They are here. Roger's eyes became serious. Next to him are Jabba, Kazuki Odin, Bullet, next to him is Garp, and behind him are the crew preparing to fight. On the side, Kaido. Roger. The second meeting of you and me, it really made my blood boil. Jiāng Liú's laughter came quickly. I'm not happy at all, Jiāng Liú. Roger shouted in a deep voice. Chapter 197. Advertise here. Surrounded by the opponent, under the siege, and almost buried in the ocean, Roger naturally wouldn't feel happy. It can be said that when he saw the other party, his heart was still burning with anger. Ha 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 ha. Jiāng Liú laughed and put his hand on the hilt of the knife around his waist. With his actions, the eyes of the people on the opposite side became cold, and they were all on guard, ready to go to war. You set up such a battle, I will naturally respect your choice. After a pause, Jiāng Liú's tone was calm. Fight upright with you. Roger has black hair floating, his robe trembling hunting, staring at the young man opposite, suddenly feeling a lot of emotion in his heart. The two are like 2 mountains in this era. He seems to be in his twilight years, but his ambitions are unpaid, and his fighting spirit is high. The other party is full of vigor, like the newborn sun, like the sun in the sky. The difference is the ambition and means of the other party. The ambition is strong, and the means are in line with the 18 identities of the pirate. There are both despicable siege and dignified challenge. It is unpredictable and mysterious. The sea breeze came slowly, and the 2 groups of people were staring at each other, and their fighting spirit was gradually rising. Jiāng Liú. Kaido gritted his teeth and burst out the name from his lips. The anger and hatred in his eyes were clearly visible. But the 2 sides did not act rashly at this time, they were both observing and looking for their next opponent. Golden Lion Shiki put his hands on his waist, pulled out the 2 long knives, and locked his eyes on Roger. Roger, the battle between you and me will end today. The invisible power is spreading, shaking, and permeating the void, making everyone feel heart palpitations. The tense atmosphere made everyone's heart beat and blood flowed at an accelerating rate. The expressions of ordinary crew members, such as Enel, Moria, etc., looked a bit hideous and distorted in this intense atmosphere. Suddenly, Jiāng Liú took the lead. Let me initiate this first charge, Roger. The battle has begun. With a deep roar, Jiāng Liú's head suddenly twisted towards the sky, swelling and becoming bigger. In the blink of an eye, his back split open, and a pair of wings grew. The original 3-meter-high figure expanded in a moment, and the color of his skin was also changing. Layers of scales grew out, the head transformed into the shape of a giant dragon, and the whole body instantly became a dragon body. Wow! The loud dragon roar shook the void, and under the wings of a shock, the wind roared and lightning swept out, shocking the eyes of everyone present. Dragon. There is no news that Jiāng Liú is still a zone-capable person. What the hell is going on? Why does he turn into a dragon? Just in the blink of an eye, Jiāng Liú's wings shook, soaring into the sky, condescendingly looking down at everyone. The huge body, which is more than 100 meters long, is really a giant, especially when the wings are spread out, nearly 2 kilometers, which puts huge pressure on people. Jiāng Liú. Kaido roared in shock, his body stretched towards the sky, and in a blink of an eye he changed into a giant dragon. Wow! Roaring, Kaido pounced towards the sky. Jiāng Liú's dragon's eyes were cold, his wings shook, and the dragon's claws opened and dived down. In an instant, the 2 dragons collided together. But what is shocking is that Kaido's dragon body was grabbed by Jiāng Liú's claws in an instant, and then pressed hard on the ground. Boom! The nearby jungle collapsed, flying sand and rocks. The 2 behemoths roared continuously and launched a fierce battle. The battle has begun. Guys! Roger yelled, holding his long knife high. The people behind it also yelled. At the same time, the golden lion roared and lunged at Roger, while Letterfield aimed at Garp and pulled out his umbrella knife. The opponent is not a simple second-rate character, go all out. Waldo shouted. Roar. Everyone raised their weapons high and uttered a shout that shook the entire island. The shouts of killing one after another resounded throughout Greenland. It is believed that in the future, the name of this island will inevitably be remembered in the history of the world. The fierce battle began in an instant. The first moment Roger and the golden lion collided, the billowing air spread out, blowing out the ordinary crew members nearby. The soles of their feet were cracked and cracked. Roger. Golden lion Shiki yelled. His eyes were solemn. Feeling the mighty power coming from the opponent's knife and the violent hockey, he couldn't help but speak. It is said that you have been sick for a long time, but you still look like such an incomparable spirit. Roger heard it, and with a wave of his long knife, the golden lion Shiki was blown out and retreated more than 10 meters. Ha 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 ha, Shiki, for the fight. I have always been very keen. The will and spirit are more important to me. Golden lion Shiki snorted and gave a mocking smile. How long can you maintain this posture? Two knives slammed out, and a wave of swords swiftly rushed towards Roger. The latter raised his sword and stood in front of him. When there was a crisp clash, and the ground exploded. The jungle next to it was stretched out from the middle, and a hill was directly shattered into dust in the sky. This is an extremely spectacular battle, which makes people feel extremely shocked. In the mountains and forests on the other side, two giant creatures were constantly tumbling, making deafening roars at each other. Jiāng Liú. Kaido's voice was angry and frightened. He did not expect that the opponent's dragon body state would completely restrain himself. The steel claws are sharp and powerful. Wow. Jiāng Liú responded with a sonorous dragon chant, and the dragon claws grabbed Kaido's body, and with a sneer, the opponent's dragon body was broken open, and a large amount of blood was thrown out. The claws of the Millennium Dragon are the most powerful weapon, comparable to the point of a sword. This huge body possesses terrifying power, capable of destroying a mountain in an instant. One claw pierced Kaido's body, Jiāng Liú's wings shook, and he directly took Kaido's body into the air. Roar. Kaido turned his head to aim at Jiāng Liú's dragon body, the dragon's mouth opened, and the hot flames burst out in an instant. On the side of the latter's body, the flame rubbed his body and rushed to the sky. Roar. With another ferocious dragon chant, Jiāng Liú swooped down, carrying Kaido's dragon body, directly pressing it on a large mountain. Boom. Kaido screamed again and again. In this battle between giant beasts, Jiāng Liú has obvious advantages. Chapter 198. Advertise here. The battle between giant beasts is completely a decisive battle between forces. Jiāng Liú clearly defeated Kaido in this respect, even the dragon body with its dragon scales covering the whole body and amazing defensive power was not enough to see in front of him. Boom. The dragon claw was pulled out and pressed again. Kaido ran away in a hurry, the dragon's body flew towards the sky, wiping Jiāng Liú's face, and only a tail was left in the blink of an eye. However, at this moment, the sharp claws lifted up in the blink of an eye and grasped Kaido's dragon tail. Roar. Kaido roared and screamed in pain. The next second, he was locked by Jiāng Liú's two sharp claws, then stood on the top of the mountain, shaking like crazy. Whirring, whirring. The wind was screaming, the jungle was distorted, the ground was dusty, and the tornado quickly appeared. Roar. Damn it, guy, let me go. Kaido roared again and again, struggling hard, but couldn't escape Jiāng Liú's dragon claws. In the battle between the two giant beasts, Kaido fell into the most disadvantaged side, and he was completely played by Jiāng Liú between applause. While this made him angry, he was also scared. After colliding again, the opponent could turn into a dragon body, and the type was obviously different from him, but the strength was even stronger. Until now, the opponent didn't say a word, there was only coldness and coldness in the dragon's eyes. This silent breath made him shudder. After a dozen breaths, with a bang, Kaido's dragon body was slammed to the ground cracked, and the big trees in the jungle cracked and cracked. Wow. Where Jiāng Liú stood, his wings spread out, and he raised his eyes to the sky and made a deep dragon roar, and the dragon's might shocked the world. This purely powerful way of fighting is so cool. In the state of a dragon, he is naturally much stronger than a human. Kaido gradually returned from the dragon's body, half sitting there, breathing deeply, his eyes were cold and angry. He didn't want to admit his failure. This time he specifically looked for the other party, just because he was ashamed of the blood. Picking up the mace next to him, Kaido slowly stood up, staring in front of him, standing in front of him, also looking down at his huge dragon. I won't lose to you again, Jiāng Liú. With a low roar like a roar of a wild beast, Kaido's whole body was violently blue, and his aura quickly rose. Thunder 8 trigrams. The latter looked down, with his claws spread, and also swooped down, facing fiercely. This was a head-on collision, no frills. Boom. The roar rang and the electric current swelled, filling the center of the conflict between the two. The ground on which they stepped on, cracked and cracked. The shock wave spread around the two people as the center. The big tree was slanting, and the wild animals in the forest made low and trembling calls, turning their heads and running. After a few breaths, Jiāng Liú's huge body swung backwards. This made his eyes move slightly, a little surprised. The strength of the pure dragon body unexpectedly lost slightly in the frontal confrontation with Kaido. Interesting. The dragon's mouth opened and closed, making a deep roar. He withdrew back, and in the next second, he transformed from a dragon body into a human body, pulling out the two long swords from his waist with both hands. In the 1,000-year-old dragon state, his power has reached its limit, but he has many shortcomings in the use of the power of Haki and Devil Fruit. It can be said that the human body is his strongest state. The dragon's body is only shocking, and it looks even more shocking, but it is not strong enough. Defensive, although the strength has greatly increased, but it is not perfect. Kaido saw him change his body and stepped forward as well. On the mace in his hand, intense electric light gathered, and the surrounding space was trembling. Ah 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 ah. He let out a deep roar, only a few steps before he reached Jiāng Liú's front. Jiāng Liú. The roar was thunderous, and the mace was sinking vigorously. Together with armament Haki and Kaido's immense power, Jiāng Liú was about to strike a fatal blow. But at this moment, on the two long knives in Jiāng Liú's hand, a black light flashed and turned into black knives, and the armed emission covered them in the next second. Mountains return to mountains, dust to dust, sea to sea. A mountain of ghosts sinks 3 times, and a sea of ghosts descends from the sky. A low groan resounded through the void, and Jiāng Liú's eyes flashed with purple-red light. Behind him, there seemed to be a phantom shadow of a sky-reaching giant. He opened his cold pupils and placed them on Kaido's body. Shrink. In this era, with your strength, you are not qualified enough to join this king's war. Kaido. Jiāng Liú's deep voice echoed in Kaido's ears. Second sword flow. Ghost drop. In the next second, the double knives suddenly gleamed with a brilliant purple-red light, slashing out instantly. A circle of slashing ripples spread out, and Jiāng Liú was already standing behind Kaido. The big trees in the entire forest broke apart at this moment, and the distant hills were slashed in half from the middle. Kaido waved down in his hand, and the mace that collided with the long knife for a moment, broke into 2 halves directly. His huge body stood there stiffly, and his pupils flashed with shock, fear, and dazed expressions. Quote. This knife will make you fear me for life. Quote. Kaido. Jiāng Liú's deep voice came into his ears. Kaido slowly lowered his head, and saw that from his abdomen to his chest, 2 interlaced bloodstains quickly appeared, and then, blood sprayed out. At this moment, the body also became weak. Puff. His body fell heavily to the ground, and there was no longer a chance to fight. How could he? Last time, I could fight longer, but this time. It turned out to be just a knife. Kaido's consciousness began to blur, and the fight in front of him was quickly reappearing. When played back, his body began to tremble, and his spirit began to trance. This one will make you fear me forever. Kaido. Such words kept echoing in his ears and became a nightmare in his life. In other words, he was beaten by Jiāng Liú. 2 big defeats in a row, one more swift and sharper, left Kaido's heart with a shadow. Captain Kaido. Not far from the side, the 3 big billboards were shocked when they saw this scene. They were even more afraid of Jiāng Liú, who was standing on the battlefield holding a pair of knives. If the person didn't go forward, they didn't dare to step forward to check Kaido's injury. Fortunately, Jiāng Liú only took a deep breath and turned his gaze to Roger. This war. My opponent is you, Roger. He uttered a low voice. Jiāng Liú leaned forward and shot out in the next second. Chapter 199. Advertise here. On the coast, grains of sand flew and roared like thunder. Golden Lion danced wildly with blonde hair, his feet floating on the ground, and 2 knives kept slashing towards Roger. The latter quickly retreated, holding the sword in one hand, and each sword accurately took the attack of the Golden Lion. The terrifying force caused the airflow on both sides to blast. Boom 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 boom. It's just an ordinary battle, but there are thousands of artillery fire. Shiki. Roger spit out softly, his eyes were majestic, and his domineering aura continued to rise. His sword was slow but powerful, and every swing made the void in front of him tremble. On the surface, Golden Lion has an advantage, but the pressure is even greater. Roger, what's the matter with you? Once Haki, does that end? Shiki shouted loudly, looking very energetic. The 2 famous swords Sakura Ten and Withered Wood in both hands slammed continuously and collided with each other's long swords, making a clanging sound. Hee hee. Roger raised his eyes and laughed. In the next second, he clenched the long knife in his hand and slammed it up suddenly. God avoid. Shiki's pupils contracted, and he felt the terrifying fluctuations from the opponent's long sword, and the 2 swords hurriedly staggered in front of him. Boom. With a bang, Shiki flew out. After landing on the ground, he dragged a long distance on the beach before stopping. Call. With a sigh of relief, Shiki's eyes became sharper. Although his mouth is powerful, his heart is under great pressure. Facing the man Roger, when he was not fighting, he couldn't see anything terrible about him at all. But once the fight starts, the terrifying domineering breath will continue to spread to the heart, making people feel palpitation and trembling. This man is a natural overlord. Even as the world's top Golden Lion, he is very clear and agrees that he is not as good as the other party. This is also the reason why he tried so hard to annihilate Roger here. As long as the opponent is eliminated, who else in the world can resist himself? Jiāng Liú. After all, the other party is too young, and there are still many shortcomings. I can completely play with the other party with the old experience. Golden Lion thinks like this. Thoughts flashed past in his mind, and he was about to lift the knife and step forward again. The premise of everything in this plan is that today's Roger pirate group collapses here. Undoubtedly, this is extremely difficult. At this moment, Golden Lion's eyes condensed, and he saw a figure that fell from the sky, holding a pair of knives, and crashing towards the place where Roger was. Roger! The crowd yelled. The two knives were pitch black, gleaming with crystal light, and on the long knives, the faintly flowing sakura flowers were dancing. It is Jiāng Liú. Turning around again, he saw Kaido's huge body lying there, and three big signboards were looking at his injuries nervously and anxiously. His complexion was slightly solemn, and Golden Lion was shocked. Kaido actually lost so soon. The strength of this kid has grown too fast. Eyes flickered, and Golden Lion's heart became more jealous. Not far ahead, Jiāng Liú was holding a pair of knives, whizzing down, his eyes sharp, and the momentum was like Mount High, and he swung his knives loudly. In the void, the light of two spatulas whizzed past, and the sky and the earth were bright. Roger suddenly raised his head, his eyes immediately serious and solemn. Such a splendid and unstoppable long sword aura can have an impact on him. Has this young man cultivated the king's temperament before he knew it? Holding a knife in his right hand, he slashed the long knife and pierced the void, and then burst into an unparalleled aura, crashing into Jiāng Liú's double knives. Boom! There was a deafening sound, and the whole island trembled at this moment. Many people turned around and looked at the place where the two collided. The three knives clanged loudly, surrounded by electric currents, and the dust on the ground was curled up at this moment, floating in the air. Zzz. The current was flowing, the eyes of the two collided at this moment, the red light was flashing, and the endless domineering aura impacted from it. The next second, they moved at the same time. Jiāng Liú retreated, his feet stepped on the beach, the sand was flying, followed by his knees, and he suddenly jumped. Roger turned around, and the long knife made 360 degrees, splitting the space. Boom! Soon, the three long knives collided together again. The current swelled again, the shock wave spread to the surroundings, and radiated away. The big tree swayed violently at this moment, and the sea rioted at this moment. Looking at each other again, they both clearly saw the red light in each other's eyes. Suddenly, the figure moved again, the red light in his eyes pulled out a long red line, the long knife cut through the void, and the light of the knife twisted and twisted. Immediately afterwards, it collided again. Boom! There was another bang. There was no other scenery in their eyes, only each other in front of them, the knife in each other's hands. This is a battle that gathers all the spirits and concentrates on, neither of them has any distractions, nor can they separate their spirits to deal with others. They are all top powerhouses in this world, and they are extremely focused on kendo. Listening to the sound of all things, armed color, seeing and hearing color, combat experience, conqueror's hockey, while fighting, is fighting every minute and every second. Boom 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 boom. The two of them flickered, sometimes in the air, sometimes at the seaside, and sometimes fought in the jungle. The place where they are, is energetic, majestic, and extremely domineering. Two swords, hit the tiger bone hard. Kamui. The two loud shouts sounded almost at the same time. The long knife collided and the ground collapsed, ripples spreading around, and the whole Greenland trembling constantly. They are really overbearing two people. The top of this era are here. It is impossible to predict the outcome of this war, but the process can be expected. The blood boiled beyond everyone's expectations. There were soft murmurs, and just watching the battle between the two made people tremble with blood. What a good opponent, Jiāng Liú. Is it luck or misfortune to meet an enemy like you at this moment? Roger smiled softly. The long knife in his hand waved again. Jiāng Liú resisted with double knives, and the huge force made him draw a few meters back. But the next second, he leapt high, condescendingly, brandishing a pair of knives again, and slammed it hard on Roger's long knife. Boom! The ground collapsed. Roger bent his knees, his expression serious. Can fight you. Where the heart goes. Roger. Jiāng Liú yelled. Chapter 200. Advertise here. Zzz. The electric lights flickered, the air current flickered, and the three long knives collided together, causing the surrounding air to be a little anxious. The eyes of the two collided again, and their expressions were hideous and distorted at this moment. Boom! The violent conqueror's breath collided fiercely, forming two distinct skies, shocking the entire island. This is the battle of the king. Aha! Jiāng Liú roared, the red light in his eyes pulled out the silk thread, swaying and floating in the void. The long knife flicked, piercing the void, and then slammed together again. Crack! The ground under his feet shattered and spread to the distance. Not far away, Rayleigh held his glasses with one hand, while holding the long knife in his other hand, staring at the opponent in front of him. Letterfield. There is no doubt that this is an extremely difficult opponent. A battle for the king, Pluton Rayleigh, I won't have the slightest hold on. Letterfield smiled slightly. Letterfield, we met for the first time, we have been famous for a long time. A gleam of light flashed on Rayleigh's glasses, and his voice was low. The next second, the two of them flashed, and the two knives collided fiercely. They are all the top powerhouses in the world, and they are all the most powerful deputy captains beside their respective captains. The battle between the two is also highly anticipated, and endless ripples are spurred between the collisions. It should be an interesting battle. Leadfield smiled. The battle between the two quickly entered a white-hot stage, no less inferior to the shocking battle between the two captains not far away. On the other side, Garp faced Waldo, Cyrus and other members of the Black Flag alone. Roger pirates, such as Jabba, Douglas Bullet, etc., are the cadres and members of the Golden Lion gang facing them. In terms of numbers, it is clear that Jiāng Liú Golden Lion has an absolute advantage, and Roger's people mostly face enemies several times their own. The strong of the audience, at this time, only Golden Lion was a little free. After scanning around, he finally focused on Roger. Jayahahaha. After a loud laugh, Golden Lion Shiki flew forward, holding two knives, and came to Roger's back. Roger, you wouldn't have thought of today's scene, would you? The two swords slammed out quickly, and the slash broke out in an instant. His pupils contracted and Roger's eyes were sharp, but there was Jiāng Liú on the front and Golden Lion Shiki on the back. These two enemies made him extremely stressed. Laugh. The clothes behind his back were cut in an instant, blood was flowing out, and he withdrew from his figure, quickly pulling away from the two of them. Shiki. Jiāng Liú was in the midst of the battle, and his body was strong, and the voice he uttered made Golden Lion's eyes slightly condensed. The two of us are in an alliance, Jiāng Liú. It is the business to get rid of Roger here today. Golden Lion said loudly. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes, said nothing, and fixed his eyes to Roger. This is really the most difficult scene in this life. Roger chuckled softly. With a flick of his long knife, he tore the cut robe directly to pieces, revealing a body with a mess of scars on his body. Standing there alone, the aura on his body made thousands of soldiers tremble at it. This guy is going crazy, Jiāng Liú. Golden Lion Shiki said in a deep voice, his expression extremely serious. I saw it, but you should be aware of. Jiāng Liú smiled. The two long knives between the hands were suddenly clenched, and their momentum rose in an instant. It has been nearly a year since the battle on Sky Island, and his cultivation has never slackened, even crazier than before. The improvement in strength is naturally visible to the naked eye. Although endurance is still his shortcoming, his explosive power is constantly on the rise. Armed color, seeing and hearing color, Conquerors is making rapid progress and entering the next stage. In one sentence, he has become stronger. Devil Fruit, controlled and even more amazing weight, began to awaken, with a larger radiation range, and a wider range of channels of action. In the next second, a deep, heavy breath swept across Jiāng Liú's two knives. The weight increases. 15,000 tons. On the surface, there is nothing strange, but the weight of these two knives is no different from Dashin. Jiāng Liú stepped and shot out in the next second. In an instant, he appeared in front of Roger, and two long knives swung down. Boom. Facing such a heavy knife, Roger seemed to be facing a huge meteorite falling from the sky. At this moment, the air was crushed and collapsed, and the feeling of suffocation came to the surface. Find flowers. His eyes were sharp, his whole body was concentrated, and the muscles on his sturdy arm were agitated. At this moment, armament hockey was flowing like a sakura flower, attached to the long sword, and burst out. There is no doubt that Roger must go all out in the face of Jiāng Liú's heavy blow. The long knife was swung, and the weather was overwhelming, and he attacked. Even if it is a big mountain, this knife can also be cut in one fell swoop. God avoid. Boom. The next second, the long knives collided together. The space is collapsing, the air current is rushing, everything is shooting, twisting, and trembling. Roger's face was distorted, the light in his eyes was extremely bright at this moment, and the adrenaline was soaring. Zero. He felt the endless pressure. The black hair was fluttering at this moment, and the surrounding ground, sand and gravel rolled upside down, the airflow had become distorted, and it was impossible to see where it was from the outside. Chaos. The collision of the three knives gave the space a dazzling brilliance. A spherical shock wave emerged quickly, and then slammed towards the surroundings with a bang. Hoo. The wind was howling, and the sea level was violently ups and downs at this moment. The pirates who remained on the sea looked shocked and trembled. Is this the battle between the captain and the officers? Even though I'm so far away, I still feel trembling. I'm sweating all over. Is this the smell of fear? They muttered to themselves, shaking all over. On that huge island, in different places, there are ripples spreading out, and the whole island is shaking. Especially where the two captains are, even the space is distorted, and the sky is cracking and trembling. Such a scene is almost like the end of the world. Soon, when everything subsided, Jiāng Liú and Roger are separated, solidifying each other. Call. Slowly exhaling, Roger's forehead was slightly sweaty. On the other hand, Jiāng Liú is still in good condition. Not far away, there was a worried expression on Crocus's face. With his physical condition, such a high-intensity battle. 1.